Graffiti is an unspoken dialogue between the artist's vision and the vibrant linguistic expression applied to a medium. It is a dynamic language spoken through aerosol. Vivid colors, powerful messages, and intricate letter structures transform ordinary, bland surfaces into living, breathing canvases of the streets. This is art that is deeply personal, yet unapologetically public. While most of the world sleeps under the pale moonlight, embracing their circadian rhythm, an entire culture awakens, navigating the concrete jungle and leaving their mark on society one spray can at a time. My guest has been a cornerstone of this culture for decades, dedicating himself to constant evolution and honing his craft with relentless passion. With a background in skateboarding and breakdancing, his progression within the elements of hip-hop culture was a natural fit. Exceptionally talented across multiple disciplines, he brings originality and attitude to every piece he creates, whether on the streets or in fine art spaces. His painting style is as bold and authentic as the culture he represents, bridging the gap between street art and gallery walls. As someone who has admired his work since my teenage years, it was both an honor and a pleasure to not only ask the questions I've always wondered, but also to get to know the person behind the art. So please, join me in welcoming the absolutely incredible Ewok One. Now listening to the Sauce Talk podcast. What up, everybody? It's your boy Al Siggity Sauce, and welcome back to the Sauce Talk podcast. Today, I have an absolute New York City graffiti legend with us today. Please welcome my man Ewok One. What up, baby?
What's good, man? What's good?
How are you, man?
I'm good. Little troop out here.
Little bit.
A little cold day, but we're good. We made it.
Thank you so much for coming.
No,
I really appreciate you coming through to build with me.
Thank you.
We broke bread, so to speak, a little bit.
Yes, we did.
And I've been following your art for a long time, since I was a kid. And I think my audience needs somebody like you to get to know you, and somebody of you cut from your cloth, if you will, and from your craft.
I appreciate it.
And another thing is, I think people need to give you your flowers. Those that are in the industry or in the art scene or the graffiti scene, in my opinion, you're underappreciated. And I love to give people, flowers when they deserve them. So that's definitely what we're here for today. Cool, and to get my guests to get to know you. So I'd like to take it back a bit. Where did you grow up?
It depends on what you mean. Skating, graffiti, like what are we talking first?
I'm speaking in general, like the area that you grew up in.
Yeah, I told you on the way here, I was born in Ridgewood, New Jersey, North Jersey. My folks separated. My pop stayed in Jersey. My mom's moved upstate. I moved with her as a little kid. So okay. I don't know, I think like 81, I moved up to Kingston, New York.
Wow.
So I was raised in Kingston, which is like upstate New York, about 2 hours north from the city. So when I think of my life, that's like my skate years. So I was a skater from like 85 as a little kid to like 97, 98, 99. It kind of trickled out. But that was like my first passion was skateboarding. But that led into like graffiti and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But skating got me to the city. I've said this on other podcasts. I don't want to keep saying the same stories. But
you're good.
Skating was what brought me to the city. But also skating allowed me to see graphics, skateboard graphics and stuff like that, which as a young kid, that's like the visual eye candy. And you're mysterious. Like, who are these people doing all these skateboard graphics? But then I started going to like skate parks, skate spots, and I started seeing the same names at different places. And I was like, that's interesting that this person is sort of like around here, like it could be any of these kids, but they're also at the other places I go and I see the same names. And I was like, what makes them put their names in different places? But for whatever reason, me as a skater, I'm noticing this.
Yeah.
So I found it intriguing and I started getting like metallic paint markers and like writing. We had a little skate team and I would like make stickers and stuff like that. So that was like the early iteration of like just putting things up and putting things around and doing what I thought graffiti was. You know what I mean? So then 96, I came to New York. I came to Brooklyn for school. And that allowed me to further my graffiti career in the Mecca, what I thought was an amazing time for music.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the music connection. So there's a lot going on in the tail end of the 90s, the last half of the 90s. Still had a good energy.
Yeah.
It was violent. It was dark, grimy, It was still an era where, like, if you walk down the wrong street, you get a 40-ounce thrown at you by dudes on the stoop. Like, that's an era that you don't even think you don't know that. If you weren't around that era at the time, you wouldn't even think that that's a thing.
Yeah.
That was a thing. There'd be dudes on the steps, and if they didn't recognize you, you might catch a fucking 40-ounce breaking at your feet.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
it was a test to you. Are you going to run, or are you going to be like, what the fuck is up? Like, I'm from that era where, like, when you're walking towards somebody, this is like stuff that people don't talk about now, but, like, there was a challenge. Like, if you made eye contact, they would stare at you, and it was almost like if you looked away, you're punk. If you look too much, someone's going to be like, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
That was a real thing.
Of course.
That's not even a thing anymore.
Yeah, I guess
the
not.
violence got so bad that I think everybody just turned it down a little bit, to the point where, like, you conditionally almost just don't even want to be on the same sidewalk if you see somebody now.
Yeah, it's like everybody got desensitized.
It was a weird era, man. And that's like my high school years, and like I was a punk ass. So, like, I was all for it. Like, challenge that, like, all that, like, confrontational shit to try and make you feel like you're not a punk, you have to prove it to yourself type shit. Like, it was a whole different time. And, like, just the 90s, like I said, like the tail end of the 90s, it was still part of that. So when I came to the city, it was what I kind of saw a little bit in the hood of my hometown, but the New York City version. It was like on steroids.
Yeah.
Like Fort Greene, Myrtle Ave, and shit in downtown Brooklyn. It was still nuts. It felt like a Gangstar, a J. Rue the Damager video. And it's like, if you go down there now, it looks like a whole nother world.
Speaking of your hometown, I've never really been upstate. Besides, like, Suffern, New York.
Yeah, I don't even know where that is.
Spring Valley, shit like that.
Yeah.
What was Kingston kind of like? I kind of want to just go back into that era. What kind of town was it like? Since you said you were skateboarding, so I'm assuming there's a lot of skateboarders.
It's a mix. It's one of this. It has its hood. It has its nice neighborhoods. It's a city. It's a little city. It's just got different parts: uptown, downtown, midtown. Excuse me. So, they had your mall, you had your bowling alley, you had your skate rink, you had your arcades and shit like that. But Broadway was, like, connected to the hood, and it was like the library. It was called the Block. It was like a bad part of the neighborhood. It had, like, all the crack dealers. Like, I think at one point, remember, through music, they'd be like, Jungle Brothers on the run. You ever heard that?
Yeah.
Because one of the guys was, like, on the run from the police selling crack in Kingston.
Oh,
so
no
everybody
shit.
knew that. Oh, that's the guy from Jungle Brothers. He's up here on the run selling crack. But that was just like people would come through town, and like I don't know, people would pass through because there was a stop on the thruway. So, like, every once in a while, people would pop through Kingston, and it had, like, its hip hop shop. My boy Sean had his hip hop shop. It has, like, all the graffiti stuff, and so it had a little culture, but it was just a small, like, had great skaters, had great culture from the city because people brought it to the town, and then it just caught on like wildfire. So it had a great little era for the 90s. Yeah, from like 92 to like 95 was a really cool time for Kingston. A lot of, drug arrests and stuff like that. A lot of friends got fucked up and everything, but
had a little bit of everything.
It was great for like a teen growing up. And then at the time I was like, I got to go to the city because if not, I'm just going to die in this town doing something miserable or something.
But I would assume it'd be good to get a base because this way you cover the nice stuff, the bad stuff. This way you get to know what's out there.
And it was great because it was 2 hours out of the city, and there was a bus that took us to the city, so we could come down and skate, and I get that energy. Take pictures and shit, and see all the tags, and go home buzzing. I'd be excited and shit.
Hell yeah.
But, we were close to Poughkeepsie, which is another city. Newburgh was another city.
I'm familiar with Poughkeepsie.
So like Newburgh, they all had little graph trickled in there, in a little history, and a bunch of homeboys and like hip-hop homies were in Poughkeepsie that were doing their thing, so they were all dancing on MTV's The Grind. So there was like, you're laughing over here. So there was like a connection. These guys were going to the city and they would film like 5 episodes of The Grind in one day. They'd come back and I'd be watching that shit every day. I'm like, oh, there's TC and there's fucking Sean and there's Marcus and Bertman and all these dudes. And it was cracking me up because I was like, I
can't believe you brought that up.
They were like older than me. I couldn't go to the city for them with that because that would have been the coolest thing ever. But like I would go to clubs upstate with them. So when I would roll in with them, they're all superstars, and I'd be like this little fucking little b-boy from Kingston on the weekends hanging out with them. It was great.
That's funny as hell. One thing that you know, we were talking the past couple of days that I thought was interesting is your parents were both hippies, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you know.
What was what is life like? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's cool, but yeah, they both were at Woodstock and all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, the whole story.
I'm sure you must have heard the wildest shit growing up.
My dad, that was his whole like identity. It was like the Woodstock shit. So my pops was a bass player. I guess you could say his claim to fame was he was in the band, the Ohio Express.
Really?
So like that yummy, yummy, yummy. I got love in my tummy. Yeah. So that was my dad was in that band for a couple of years. Went on tour with them, did like South America and all this shit. He wasn't part of the original band, but he came in later and was on tour with them. But when that song hit, I guess he like rode that whole wave. But after that, he was in like, you know, the whole East Coast, Fillmore East, and like the downtown Village scene and the whole era of like Aerosmith coming up and like all these bands like Jimi Hendrix would come to town and like it was all like that music connection in the Village. And there's a guy named Lance who I was named after. He was a hair salon guy. He had a in the Manhattan Mall down on Astor Place. He had a hair barbershop. All the celebrities would come to him to get their hair done when they came to town because he was like a popular dude in the scene. And my mom got her first job coming to the city. She ran away from home and he gave her a job. So my mom met my dad at the barbershop, but my dad was a musician in the scene. So that's how that whole little music thing came about. And then this was in the 70s, 71, 72, 73.
That's awesome.
Something like that.
So you've been exposed to music from a young age. Yeah, I would assume that's where your love for it became.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because like my mom was friends with, I think it was the drummer's wife from Aerosmith. And so I think they had a daughter who we both were the same age, came up, we're sort of like when we were little kids. And so years later, I met Zoe Kravitz and the Aerosmith daughters. There's
they must have been young at that time, no?
Chelsea and driving me nuts. I can't think offhand.
They must have been real young at that point.
No, this was like 2010 or something like that.
Oh, it's not that far ago.
So, but I got to talk to the Aerosmith daughters, and I said, "Hey, do you know the drummer had a daughter?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, so and so." Like they knew her too, because I guess they all kind of knew each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "My mom and my dad knew them back in the day." And I mean, I kind of like there's pictures of us in like the bathtub together, like as little kids. And she's like, "What? Like this is crazy."
Wow.
Yeah, it's really wild stuff, but yeah, it's just linking up with them years later and just kind of like telling them about that side of my folks. And there was a lot of like interesting overlaps with just the music world from my pops. But yeah, my pops just passed away 2 years ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, they both were hippies. I think that's where my rebellious protest, kind of anti-government about certain things comes from. The angst, the anger about seeing things that are unjust and shit. I think that comes from like, because my mom was like the chick that was like, walking up to the protesters and putting the fucking flower in the gun.
Oh, I love
like,
that.
That's like my mom.
That's dope.
That was like my mom's.
Oh, that's dope.
Type of shit. So,
what was it like growing up in a household like that? Would you say it was like very free?
I mean, it wasn't like that. I mean, it's not like I grew up around hippies, but that was their era of music was freedom and shit like that. But you know, everybody got like real lives, and I think they just listened to more of that kind of music growing up. The music was always in the ether, you know, like I heard like the Grateful Dead and shit years later. My mom remarried, so I was around like the Grateful Dead music and like Rolling Stones and just all the good shit from like the 60s and 70s was just in the background. You know, and I appreciated that shit now. Like I went to a Grateful Dead concert in like 1985 at the Meadowlands.
Oh, wow.
And like there's pictures of me like standing with like a skateboard in the parking lot. With like two different shoes on, like a Reebok black shoe and a white shoe. And I was a little kid, and I'm like, "Yo, how am I got a skate shirt on with like two different shoes, skateboarding?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "This is blowing my mind because I didn't understand fashion. I was just doing what I thought was cool."
Which I think that's a contributor, birthed by your parents, and that would make sense why you're such a creative. That you came from. Even though it's a hippie household, those are very free thinkers. Sure. So they must have let you creatively express yourself, which makes sense why you're an artist.
Yeah, she would say stuff like, "Oh yeah, we just let you dress yourself. What we gonna tell you not to wear that?" Kind of thing. Like I'd run around and wear what I want.
That's so dope.
It is till you look back at photos of me in like high school and college, and I'm like cringing. I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck was I thinking?
Nah, that's ill. I think to me personally, that's kind of cool because I've never really met anybody that kind of grew up under I guess quote unquote hippies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool because I appreciate a lot of their free thinking and their the freedom of speech. How that's all that stuff's so important to them and just their creative outlets they pour themselves into and emotionally.
Yeah, and they never really forced like religion on me or anything like that, which is kind of cool. I wasn't like indoctrinated into anything. They kind of just let me figure shit out. Like I was out in the street skating. Like that's pushed the limits of what I was allowed to do, but I was like the kid that was out playing in the mud and running around the woods doing shit by myself.
Yeah.
They didn't care. It's just like as long as I wasn't getting beat up, which I'm getting into fights and stuff, which was later on. But like, there was only so much they could kind of keep a cap on. I was running around skating and shit and wilding out doing things.
Yeah.
But it's just the way it was in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, for sure. One thing that I love about you is we could sit here and talk about the 5 elements of hip hop, right? And usually you have people that are typically participate in more than one leg of hip hop, if you will. But usually they're only really good at one. There's a very select few that are good at multiple branches of said hip hop, right?
Very few. That's not normal. It's not a normal thing.
Yeah, yeah. You, oddly enough, are good at multiple branches of it, being that you were a breaker and you're a graffiti artist and very exceptionally good at both of them.
I've had moments. I mean, these days I'm not really doing the dance as much as I used to, but it's still in who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've talked about this on other podcasts, but your audience might not know. So I'm known for like graffiti and art and stuff, but like I've been a breaker b-boy since I was a little kid, like 2nd grade. So it's actually predates any graffiti. And they weren't even intertwined in any way, shape, or form. It's not like I could say, oh, the b-boy kids I knew were doing graffiti. Like it wasn't even a thing. I was just breaking because it was in the neighborhood in my time. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So we were talking about skateboarding, and to me, in my opinion, skateboarding should be the 6th element of hip hop.
Yeah, it could be. It should be. It could be.
In my opinion.
Because especially on the East Coast. The West Coast is a whole nother story, but the East Coast for sure.
Yeah, it should be.
Like Jersey, New York skating was intertwined with street and hood. I mean, like the Zoo York mixtape to me,
my God.
That's like my youth. Even though that came later, that was the life I lived, hip hop, rap. But I told you on the way here, like I had the rock side too, like the Venice Beach punk side in me because I was just in the skate videos.
Yeah.
So it was hip hop or it was like Suicidal Tendencies, Circle Jerks.
Fire.
Shit like that. Like, so I had bipolar thing happening with music coming up. And stuff to this day, like I'm like, oh my God, I never knew who this was, but I heard that from a snowboard video.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
That shit's sick.
Yeah.
But skateboarding, for sure, to me.
Easily could be. I don't know what is going on these days. It's still very commercialized, but.
Dude, it's like, I mean, I found out about Company Flow, which we'll talk about later because you have to do with that conversation. But I found out about them through, shorties.
Oh, okay.
Through fucking Fulfill the Dream. When you hear Collude Intrude, what's his name came out to that shit. I was like, yo, this is the illest shit ever.
That's crazy. So that's how it fed to you.
That's how it fed to me.
That's wild. See, I never thought
you gotta remember.
I never saw that connection.
I've always been into hip hop since I was very young.
Sure.
But I grew up most of my life in the suburbs.
Yeah.
My family's from the hood in Patterson. Both of my parents lived there. And I had family there, but my parents didn't make me grow up there. They put me in the suburbs for obvious reasons. So I grew up in the suburbs most of my life, but going back to visit family, that's how I got into graph. That's how I got into hip hop. Older cousins, the story just unfolds and unravels that way.
Gotcha.
But that's how I got into that shit. And I love skate videos, and I still collect them to this day. I have a fucking mixtape in there. I got everything you could think of. Shorty's Fulfill the Dream, original cassette, the whole nine. But I remember watching that video, and I loved Shorty's Fulfill the Dream. I love the graphics. I love the musket.
I love the photo shoots of the chicks and that's how I saw Shorty's. All that stuff came later. My skate video era was like Hocus Pocus, Ban This, Shackle Me Not.
Which is fire. But you're older than me, so.
Yeah, Public Domain. These are like the eras the early stuff led into the 90s to me.
Yeah.
By the time that came around, I was sort of checking out because it was a little more refined and Rob Dyrdek was getting involved and it was a big thing. It was like, I was kind of already not feeling it at that point.
And that shows our age difference slightly. It's just
I still loved it. It's just, I was more into like Shut and Zoo York later, and then like just that kind of era. And there was a company called Dead End from Jersey. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't.
They were around for a little while. So my pops was in Jersey. I'd come to Jersey and skate, and I would hang out with all these kids. And it was a company called Dead End, and they had a little logo. It was dope. So like this is an East Coast vibe that I loved.
Oh, it's so sick.
And then when that sort of started to change, I kind of lost interest. Plus, I was heavier into graph, so you only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
But as a kid, growing up, skateboarding was easily the gateway into hip hop, graph, fighting, being a punk, getting chased in the hood.
Yeah. That's why it's got to me. It's got to be the sixth element, if you will. Of
Absolutely. I can see the argument. Believe me.
Yeah.
But again, I've also seen what the West Coast is like, and it's like a whole different world out there. Skating, we were jealous of them because they skated all year long.
Yeah, because of the weather.
But we were fortunate because we had the mountains to snowboard in the winter, so we would switch it out around like October.
So you were a snowboarder too.
I was heavy into snowboarding.
Wow.
I was in the first wave of snowboarding where it was like 95% skiers on the mountain, 5% snowboarders, and we were fighting skiers. And then the following year, it's 15% snowboarders, less skiers, and we're fighting skiers. And then the following year, it's about 40% snowboarders, and now we're fucking up skiers. And then by the following year, it's like, stay the fuck out of our way, because now we're dominating the mountain. So it'd be like Bel Air, Hunter, Plattekill, Bingham, Wyndham. We would bounce around these different slopes, and we watched the change. The skiing to snowboarding ratio got so different, and then it kind of teetered out. It was crazy times. That was the winter time. So like we were these like arrogant skier dudes would try to fuck with us, but we were like skate kids.
Yeah,
we were not having it, and it was like gloves off, fighting in the snow, and it would be crazy. And I hung out with a bunch of other punk asses that were actually like bigger kids fighting. It was wild. It was on a ski slope.
You were a wild boy.
I had a wild team.
You was a wild boy. Yeah.
My mom will attest. Yeah. Every time I got into a fight and came home with like black eyes and shit, she'd take a picture. I got like tons of these pictures of me looking all pissed off, like, come on. And I got like a puffy ear and a black eye and shit. Man. Hilarious.
Well, the reason I want to bring up skateboarding is not only because it's an important part of your life, but because you just brought up breakdancing and you said that you breakdanced at an early age. Did skateboarding come before breakdancing or did break?
Breaking was I was a little kid, older kids on my blocks dancing on the corner because my sidewalk. I've told this 50 million times.
Don't worry about it. Keep telling them.
I have a grass corner and the sidewalk. People would cut across the grass, so the grass would die and it'd be a big area. They would throw the cardboard down on the corner. That was my front yard. So if I wasn't cool with them, I'd stay up on the porch and watch. But as I got older, I could hang out with them. I learned all my basics from them right there on the corner.
No shit.
Smith and Down Street in Kingston. If anybody Google Maps it and sees it today, there's a big yellow house in the corner. It was right there in the front yard.
Wow.
Grass patch. It's probably grown in by now, but it used to be flat, and that's where the kids in the neighborhood, the 5-6 block radius, would break on that corner.
Wow.
Older kids. But there was no skateboarding at that point. That was first and second grade for me, which would probably be, I don't know, 82, 83. It sounds crazy for me as a fucking adult to be like, oh, it's breaking in 82. Nah, I wasn't at the clubs and doing shit like that, but I was legit learning.
Wow.
Top rock, footwork, backspin, freeze. The worm, suicide.
Up rocks, all that.
And freezes. I was learning that from these kids in my town who were probably horrible in reality, but they knew the basics, whether it be watching TV or wherever they got it from. They were able to instill it on me.
And they planted that
seed. I had Pumas. I had like, not Adidas pants, but I had like a stretchy.
With like, the super fat laces and all that?
Didn't have that. I just had Pumas. I thought I was down. I had the green windbreaker that would turn inside out into a little pouch with a little buckle belt. And then you could wear it as a belt. And then if I wanted to break, I could pull out the damn windbreaker, put it on with the hood, and just backspin.
Wow.
It was green. It was like emerald green. And then these are the guys that gave me my first cassette tape. I had the little Sony boombox. It was a little tiny, long one.
Oh,
I had like a Houdini mixtape. It was handwritten, said Friends on it. And I didn't know till years later that it was actually Houdini. But like the music was like, Friends, how many of us have them? I was in the kitchen going crazy. Like, next time I see him outside, I'm going to show him what I do. I'll get better, whatever. So that's the breaking side of that.
Nah,
thinking about that shit. Went away. I got into skateboarding, and then it came back. B-Boy came back in my world around like 91. Public Enemy, like champion sweaters was a thing. There was like, it was in the air again. I started seeing B-Boying around in music videos.
Yeah.
And it was coming from the West Coast, which is weird, because they were dressing like they're from the Bronx. Adidas tracksuits, Kangol hats, big shell-toe Adidas with like laces fat, cardboard, graffiti in the back, but it was coming from Cali. I didn't know if it was like San Diego or LA or what, but it went around the world to Germany, to LA, and came back to New York in the 90s. Picked it back up again through my friends on the grind.
That's just not, I can't believe you said them to be the grind.
And they were like hip-hop dancers at the time, but they were kids that were breaking as their kids.
That's
and they were
crazy.
kids, they were breaking, but they're hip-hop dudes, but they could throw down. If somebody's in the club breaking, they were jumping down.
That's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, my boy Raz, TC, these guys were doing coin drops, footwork, popping and locking, doing all kinds of crazy shit. And my other boy Marcus, who was Bertman, who's in Japan now, is a big producer, organizes events. They were breakers. They would do suicides, flips, and all kinds of shit. So.
That's fucking. You saying this shit right now, even though I didn't live through most of what you're living through,
you kind of know what I'm talking about.
It's giving me goosebumps. It's just like, I wish I could capture that feeling in a bottle and sell it to people. It'd be fucking crack, worse than fucking fentanyl.
Dude. Yeah, because people talk about it, but it's like, it's weird. And there's other people that do know what I'm talking about. You know, there's older people than me that are old enough to be around it. I was very fortunate because I was way too young to be around it, but I caught it from these people that were older than me. Everything that I got into was always because it was older people around me.
Of course, that influence.
You know? I mean, it sounds crazy again. I said this on other podcasts. I was going into the Roxy's and the Roseland. These are big events, big concert hall kind of places that have history in New York City for breaking and just culture and music. Yeah. I would get in by carrying records, like a crate of records in. I was probably 17 years old, 16 years old. Wow. You can't get into a club. But they're like, carry this crate of records and you're with me. You're in for the night.
You're like staff almost.
Yeah. Earlier on in the night, they weren't checking the door yet. You're going in and they're setting up. I'm carrying records and they're like, you're in for the night.
That's the cheat code.
Because if you go out, you're out till we leave.
Yeah.
So you're going to be sitting on the street. So you can't leave. And don't get into any trouble because then you're kicked out anyway.
Yeah, of course.
So I was very fortunate to be around a lot of like interesting techno, jungle, drum and bass, nightclub kind of environments in the city in the 90s when I was too young probably to get in any of that shit.
So the tunnel, I would assume you
the tunnel was crazy to me because every night was kind of different, but I was in the tunnel some nights when it was like, it felt like some Hot 97 crazy shit and bouncers are going nuts, dragging people out by their fucking collars. Yeah. And I'm talking about like grabbing them by their shirts and just pile driving through whole crowds and the crowd's breaking open like a sea and these bouncers are just flying people out. And I'm like, I'm not into this shit. Whatever this club shit is, this is nuts.
It's wild.
And that's even if you could get in. A lot of the clubs you'd roll up and they'd be like, you're not coming in boots. You can't come in with sneakers or whatever. No. And I'm like, what? I just got here and I just can't even get in. I'm like, fuck this shit. I'm not coming out next week. They're like, nah, we'll see you tomorrow.
Crazy, right? I interviewed a guy that used to frequent the tunnel and to hear his stories about the fuzzy room, which was AKA the curfew room and all that. Okay. That shit was bananas.
I was more around in Limelight. Limelight was a cool spot. It was like a big church and shit.
Yeah, I know.
It was run by a crazy backstory there, but it was fun times. I've been to a lot of cool places in the city. Fortunate to catch a tail of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to bring it back to skating a little bit because even though I'm not a skateboarder, that's like my shit. I dabbled a little, but again, we were talking in the car about graph and stuff. And me personally, I realized the commitment it took. You know, when you want to be a skateboarder, you're gonna fuck up your knees a lot, your shins, and I didn't have it in me. Yeah. So I was the cat that like hung out, brought the boombox, made the illest mixes on cassette, and I just provided a musical landscape for my peoples. And I would watch.
Yeah, you got the soundtrack. Yeah,
exactly.
That's cool.
But I love skating. I collect skate VHS to this day. I have some dead stock decks in the crib.
Yeah, we'll talk off cam. I got lots of crazy shit.
All that shit. I love that stuff.
I got a lot of crazy stuff.
When you were skating, 2 questions. Do you remember your first deck you ever got? Because most skateboarders know that.
Oh, yeah.
And what was your favorite brand to ride?
All right, so that's a 2-part question. 2 totally different answers. My first 2 decks, because the first 2 were very important. It wasn't the first. It was the first 2.
Was it a Nash?
No. Well, actually, if you're going back that far, those decks.
Mine was the Nash.
You said my first real deck.
Yeah.
The first trash deck I had was off the wall. It was like a concave piece of plastic trash from Caldor or something like that.
Caldor was fire.
My first real deck was a Mike McGill that a friend sold me, and then the second deck was a Johnny Cop Vision. And these are like not your go-to Vision decks. Like everybody knew the Gator, everybody knew Gons.
It's a deep cut.
But this was like, it had a cool nose, Johnny Cop, and like it was just a cool deck to have. But then not years, but like my third deck was a Bryce Knights. Wow. And then it just went into all the other cool decks that I had throughout the years. Like all the decks that I went through. It got to the point where you were breaking them every week. It was at first you had a deck till the tail was grinded down. But then after a while you were getting them all the time. Skate shops in town, I was getting them. People were stealing them. We'd go up to Saratoga Springs and walk out with skateboard decks up the back of your shirt.
You're a real graph head.
Yeah, it was crazy. Fun times. But we would go through things. I broke too many decks. I'm not even a big dude. I was still breaking boards. And then we got into an era where you're focused on them. You get mad because you can't do a trick and you're focused on your board. It was stupid. We were going through decks like every week.
I'm sure.
And a couple of my friends were getting boards all the time, so they would flow them to us because they were getting them for free. So I would get them through them.
Oh, they were on Flow?
Yeah. So even if I didn't get a brand new one from them, he would ride it for a week and then just hand me the board.
That's practically brand new.
He's getting a brand new one. I'm just getting a hand down from a week. It's like, it couldn't have been better.
That's dope.
Couldn't have been better. J Riff, I don't know wherever he is. He's out there somewhere in the world.
So what's your favorite brand in general to ride overall?
If I could go back to that era, it would be Shut, hands down.
Shut
had the dope concave, the dope graphics, the dope boards. You know, those guys know Eli and Rodney. I've talked about these dudes for years. I've loved their boards. And there was an era where something happened where a warehouse, they did a clean out sale. This is what it got through to me through the years. And somebody took a truckload of blank boards up to Kingston and sold us blank Shut decks. Blank, square.
What, for the low?
Just to get rid of them. So they were buying them out of some garage or something. Eli could probably know this story better than I would, but these blanks were coming up to Kingston and they were selling them for $20, and you could cut your own shape out. So dudes the following week were coming into the skate park with crazy shapes with concave.
Just custom crazy joints?
Yeah, crazy shapes. They cut out huge shapes, big noses, but the thing was, it was concave, and there really wasn't anything like that prior. I don't really remember. I think like Zorlak had some crazy tail shapes, but for the most part, you really weren't finding good concave to catch your feet and do like flip tricks and shit till Shut. And then these boards came upstate, these blanks, and these dudes like Don Carey and all these dudes were cutting these crazy Shut blanks, and they call them Shut uncuts. And this hit my town like a wave, and it was the greatest fucking shape ever.
Do you have pictures of that shit?
I don't have pictures. I have pictures of those skate parks and stuff, but not those decks.
Oh my God.
The pictures of me at the time was like the Nodus Kitten and shit like that, and like boards like that era.
That sounds crazy. And shout out to Zorlak. Zorlak joints was hard.
I couldn't fuck with them.
I like
they had the great graphics. Yeah, the fucking plus head graphics and shit like that, but their tails were like this big and like just looked like some crazy guitar looking thing. It was
They're just fishbone joints. Wow, that's
it was an amazing era, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh man, damn, dude. Hearing about that Shut, I gotta find pictures of those original Shut uncuts.
I don't think they're, to my knowledge, I've never seen photos of them because it was just such a small window. Wow. And it was like the weekends was a skate park. It was a YMCA in Kingston, burned to the ground. But like every weekend, people would come Albany, Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, would come to Kingston. So it would be like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It'd be like the gathering, and then I wouldn't see anybody till the next week.
Wow.
But those weekends would be fucking nuts. There'd be sleepovers. People would be skating all night. People would be getting robbed for the boards. Everything was nuts. You fell asleep first, your shit's getting stolen. They would skate all night. It was crazy.
Wow.
Shout out to John Riley.
There's got to be. I know there's photos. So somebody has them. If anybody you listen to.
Well, no. So this guy, John Riley, who organized and made this park in the Y, the whole Y burnt down and his whole save burnt with all his VHS tapes. We were going to contests in Saratoga Springs with him, and he would film us all. He'd go up in a van. Like, there's a couple kids from my town, Todd and Jeremy Jordan. Todd went on to be like a skater for like SB and like Zoo.
Yeah, I know Todd Jordan very well.
Yeah, that's my homie. These are my boys. Yeah.
Gotta get him in here.
So Todd, he probably would do it. He's a cool dude. He probably would do it. He's a little DL, keeps his stuff very private, but he's a good dude. I would love to hear him talk about that era because it was a great era. So him and his brother and Mikey and their sister would drive us around the skate spots and shit like that. It was good times. But Kingston had a little dope skate scene for a while.
Wow.
And then I went to the city for 96, and then I think Todd came down a year or two later.
Damn.
Got into the Zoo York crew.
Oh, that's my favorite shit, man.
Yeah, it was cool.
That whole era.
It was cool to see him. He was in all the Zoo York mixtape shit. And
wow. So you briefly before started touching on how you started to come in contact with graffiti. And most of that was your travels from Kingston to the city to skate, correct?
Yeah.
Wow.
On a face-to-face. I mean, before that I was driving through and taking pictures out the window of the highways, but that's different. To be able to see it in person was a different thing.
If I remember correctly, I heard this, I think it was in a past interview of yours. You used to carry a disposable camera with you when you were in the car with your parents. You'd hang out the window.
you're glorifying it, but yeah, it's pretty much, yeah.
No, listen, this shit to me matters the most.
Yeah.
Because it's the lengths that you would go through to capture something that means the most to you. And that's the stuff that is important to me. So you were hanging out the window trying to capture pictures of graffiti on the go. Now that's tough in today's day and age.
Oh, it was
with the cell phone.
It was a learning curve too. So it's the backstory. I had a camera that was it was like a clear camera. It was 35 millimeter, but you have to replace it with film. But after a while, you could steal the disposables and then pop the film out and just throw it away, take the battery out because you can get a free battery with the cameras. But so if you stole like a whole roll of disposables, you got about 12 batteries out of it too. Wow. So you would just shoot all the pictures and then just take it with you. But if, like for me, I have minimal stuff on me, I just want to carry the film back and put the battery in my pocket, maybe not even, but that's what you got out of it. You got a battery, a Walkman battery, and the little roll. You just wind it up so the roll goes in, and you just pop it open, throw it away.
Wow.
I didn't have to carry a camera around with me. But yeah, like you said, so first I would take a picture like this, but you're flying by so you get a blur. And believe me, I have tons of pictures of great phases of certain walls coming down the West Side Highway and the Cross Bronx and all this shit, that it's a blurry photo. But then the next time I came, depending on the speed of the film, you can get like a 24 or 36 speed, whatever it was, or Kodak Gold came out, you got better colors, it was amazing. But if I timed it and tried to like go with the speed of the car, the snap would almost be a still shot. Does that make sense?
That's fucking remarkable.
But it took me, fucking around and learning and just ruining like whole rolls of film with just blurry shit before I realized like,
But that sparked something in me.
Yeah.
Because when I heard that, it was not only so relatable, but it's something that's missing in today's society, is that when we were kids, during our time, and I probably came at the tail end, this is the lengths that we would go through as dudes to do something that we love the most. The passion far exceeded any hard work.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what you did. You tried anything you could to capture, and you fucking figured it out. Now everybody has everything handed to them.
You have to chase down what you love, but also you figure out from that. I figured out what was in my mind successful to be on the receiving end of that. So now if I'm doing graffiti, am I going to do something big, black and white and readable? Or am I going to do a very complicated bubble letter that no one's going to read? Oh. So it depends on the situation. So if it's a highway spot, a rooftop on the train line, or something big you're driving by, I want it to be red.
It depends on the spot.
It depends on the spot. It always does. So like when in the 90s again, I would be talking to more graffiti guys that were streetwalkers. They would just do the all city thing, walking, taking tags and doing bubble letters and throw ups. Yeah. To them, that was their purity. That was their essence, was the throw up and the tag. They didn't give a fuck about straight letters.
Piecing, none of that.
And piecing was just an elevation of my own artistic shit. That's where it would go. But for these guys, what mattered them to most was nice hand styles, a nice stylish throw up. Because you're walking a lot slower, you can stop and look at it maybe. But like highway stuff, you needed readable, bold colors. So it was a way of digesting what you want your shit to do, and it's situational.
Yeah. So I don't remember what timeline we're kind of talking about as far as like when you started noticing graffiti and wanting to do it, but artistically, when you were growing up, when you were in kindergarten, first grade, through the whole thing, middle school, were you always drawing and were you sketching as a kid? Was that something that you always liked in general before graffiti?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
As far back as I can remember, I was drawing. You'd flip the paper over in class, first grade, or whatever, and drawing it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember the little He-Man comic books that came with the Masters of the Universe toys.
Fire.
So those little comic books were like kind of watercolory paintings.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like a dream. It was like wild to like look into those little book stories.
Wow.
So I think that was like one of the first like, wow, this is cool. And then comics later became another passion and love of mine.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So here's one thing I want to know. You talked briefly before about you seeing it, then transitioning into doing it, but I kind of want to focus on a particular moment. Exactly. How it all started for you. Like, if you could go back in time and recall that feeling, because I know for a fact, since you're such a passionate person, just like I am, and that's why I can relate to you. You loved graffiti so much, seeing it, driving with your parents, capturing, going through all those efforts to capture these pictures so you can review them later and study them. Letter structure, fills, outlines, clouds, through the whole nine.
All of it, yeah.
Leading up to the first time you actually grab a can, go out and try it for the first time. Can you recap in detail and recall in that moment for you? For me, rather?
Certain little blinks. Unfortunately, like your memories sort of get like overwritten by like a photograph that you took at the time. And so like as time will go on, you'll look back at that photo. The photo kind of like records over top of your memory. So your memories are tied to like that photo now. So there's a lot of stuff I didn't take photos of. I can remember what was going on, but like my first stuff was hideous. It was just trying to figure it out and find places abandoned to paint and try things, what paint worked, what didn't. But some of my, and you know, like I said, I could send you some pictures to cut away to, you'll see some of the most hideous shit ever. My first few pictures that I actually did, pieces that I actually did, raw concrete, auto body paint, fan tips. Yeah. Horrible.
Not horrible.
But
these are the foundations.
It's the foundation, but like laughing now, like who would have ever thought it would get to where it is now from that? And, you know, I had friends with me that did similar shit, but they never followed through on it.
Because they didn't have your passion, your drive.
Yeah.
You know?
But
that's
it was a very primitive time, you know?
So, like, when we were in the car on the way here, you asked me if I wrote. And I don't. Yeah. I did for a little amount of time.
I was just curious if you dabbled, because I could see the passion and
I love it.
Interest and all that, you know?
But like I told you, being a graffiti writer not only requires a particular mind state, it requires a certain level of dedication and passion. Passion I had, dedication for it I don't, because I knew what it entailed, and I'd rather just be a fan. But I still to this day will never forget the first time I ever grabbed a can and actually went out to try it. First of all, it was, when it comes to like my heart racing, it was similar to asking my wife to marry me. I was so nervous.
Yeah, it's a thrill.
But so excited at the same time. And I'll never forget going out at night, grabbing the can, hearing the sound of the aerosol and the paint splashing off the wall, and the moonlight coming in and catching the mist.
Yeah, it's like a movie or a dream, right? Yeah, so there's a thing that I could say right now that like you'll probably relate to, and I bet you 99% of my friends or peers that are in my world have forgotten what I'm about to tell you. There was an era when you're first starting with this stuff and you're taking tags and you're doing illegal stuff, there's this rush. I mean, there's an element, a little bit of that rush that people still are chasing. It's like a drug chase.
Yeah.
People love the thrill of writing on shit illegally. And it's really an addictive feeling. So like you get to a point where you'll be like on a subway platform and there'll be a cop walking at you. And in my right hand or my left hand is a marker in my pocket. And I know I only need about 5-6 seconds to catch a tag. So I know realistically, a cop is going to walk by me and naturally they're not going to turn around. The second the cop would walk past me, I would walk to a pole and take a tag with my body blocked because of the thrill of it.
Yeah.
And like there's this rush you get, especially when you're in your younger years, because, you know, if you're at home writing your tag on paper, it comes out perfect. But when you're live with a marker, you'll do some terrible tags because of the jitters you have.
Yeah.
But there's that rush. You want that feeling. So like the more better you get, you do find yourself relaxing under pressure. And there's a purity and a beauty to that. So like when you see guys who are doing incredible tags all the time, they're very comfortable under pressure. Yeah. They're relaxed. There's no jitter. Yeah. And so like there's a lot of whack tags out there. It's not, could be because they're whack. But it just may be no one's ever told them, yo, chill out. Take your time.
Yeah.
They may be just really quick and they're fucking it up and it always looks toy. So like once, like I could look back at my old shit and I'm like, oh my God, it's painful because it took me a while to finally just relax. I know if I want to do a short tag, it's an Ewok tag. If I have a little bit of time, Ewok One, Star, 5MH, IMOK, whatever, hook it up. Really how much time you have. So a lot of my tags and the thrill I would get would be just in broad daylight, doing things like using my body as a block.
Interesting.
And so like even I would get a thrill knowing that there could be like a cop 10 feet away. But if he's looking at me, my body language looks really normal. And if I'm not doing this, I could just be taking a tag.
Wow.
And from the back, I just look like I'm sitting on a pole. But there's a thrill knowing that the cop is right there. Yeah. And I'm just taking a big tag.
And it's a big fuck you.
As long as I let it dry.
Fuck you.
As long as I let it dry. And if I walk off and they see it and they go and touch it, it's dry. But if they come up and it's wet, obviously I did it. So there's an element of like, oh shit, I got to hang out and kind of block it and let it dry before I can kind of walk off. So there was that thrill, you know? And it's like a few people, I've talked to like this guy Scuff. At one point, like he had tags everywhere. Talking like marker tags, like in the cuttiest spots of downtown Brooklyn and stores. He'd be in like a store and I'd be looking at shoes and there's like a marker tag right in the fucking shoebox.
Amazing.
And I'm like, this dude's, he's got that thrill. I could see it. I'd be like in the weirdest spots and it'd be like a scuff tag. And I'd be like, I know he's got that feeling that I get when I do certain things that I shouldn't be doing in places that are not normal. And you don't think anyone's gonna ever see it. You're doing that thrill for yourself. And I saw certain things like that, and I'm like, he's got that little itch. I could see it.
But it takes that level of zen, that level of tranquility.
You need to be able to relax under pressure, and that's sort of like the love that I found in jiu-jitsu later was the same thing. It's performing under pressure, like real dire circumstances, but performing calm.
Wow.
Where other people would be panicking and going nuts, like like white belts and blue belts panic under fire, and they have this thing called neon belly. It's like it's meant to basically chill out people who are panicking and flailing and going nuts. Neon belly just shuts them down. Relax.
You know what's crazy? You know, you having this conversation with me, now I'm starting to, you just kind of opened up a world to me. Because like when I sit there and observe tags and I observe this and I see somebody like progress over time, I usually just automatically think, oh, that's just them getting better.
Yeah, it's just them getting better.
But it's more than that. It's them getting comfortable, them getting zen, them getting
smooth,
spiritually connected with not only the marker, but the ink itself and the felt tip or the cap or the consistency of the paint that they're using. You're watching them get better, not only with their letter structure, but with their spirituality, with them and the wall.
The pressure.
You just blew my fucking mind. I never thought about it that way.
But it's also the speed too. Like with a spray can, if you know, you might have the best cap, it might look really good, but if you go too fast, it's gonna look like shit.
Or it could be
too slow,
drippy
it's gonna look
if you sit there too long.
Sometimes some people like drips. There's nothing. It's that whole fallacy of like, oh, it's got drips.
Stylistic.
Depends on what you're looking for. Like this guy Volcan, who's an amazing '80s writer.
Yeah.
That dude had a little comeback doing insides on the trains like a bunch of years back, like 15 years ago.
What, with mops and shit?
With like homemade mops in trains. His tag Vulcan was so like jaggedy shapes. He would purposely close up all the holes and then go back in it and black it out. So it just looked like a Vulcan shape. Wow. But he wanted he told me this, he wanted the drips to go down the wall, onto the seats, onto the seat.
Wow.
But the outline shape of the tag, you could tell it's a Vulcan tag, but he was purposely going back in and like filling in it. He wanted them rains of fucking ink.
Wow.
And I was fascinated hearing that because I was seeing them and I was like, why is he closing up all the inside holes? He was like, I want that. I was like, I get it. He was just
purposeful.
He was just raining ink down the wall, down the chair.
Wow.
Pooling up in the seat. I'm like, that's crazy.
Wow.
'Cause I was seeing either them fresh or I was seeing them buffed, but you could still see the ghosts coming. And it was like
crazy.
It was a wild time to see tags and hear perspective from someone like that. But yeah.
One thing I remember, I'll never forget the first time I went out painting was my nose.
What do you mean?
I was so close to the goddamn wall.
Oh no.
Or the billboard.
Yeah.
Or the fucking box truck I was tagging that I inhaled. My nose was purple.
That's funny.
You know, I never my nose hairs were fucking.
You definitely didn't have someone to be like, yo, relax, step back.
Well, you got to remember, I grew up most of my life in the suburbs, but would visit the hood to see everything.
Yeah.
I mean, in Patterson, I don't know if you're familiar with some of the AG crew was killing back in the day in Patterson.
I just went there for these events that I was telling you about that this guy was throwing.
Yeah, the Patterson school gym.
Yeah.
But I remember just like seeing that shit. I didn't know. I was just trying. I remember if I grew up in the suburbs, there's not many people in my area into this shit that I'm into. I have an urban influence.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I remember coming home like, yo, my fucking nose is like, I inhaled all the aerosol.
I mean, obviously I have my memories of that. But for me, it was like the Rust-Oleum paint was more sticky and tacky. So like I would come home with like my forearm hairs would be all like sticky.
You know, now that you say that, the Krylon was much more powderier.
Yeah, it was more like watery.
Yeah.
But there was like an oil-based tackiness to Rusto.
Yeah.
Or American accents. It would just always kind of like land on your skin and get stuck.
So was Ewok your first name ever?
No.
Or did you have like a bunch of other names that you trial and error?
Yeah. I had a whole bunch of stupid names when I was a super toy.
Yeah.
But I kind of got roped into a lot of legal stuff, and I was in probation for my whole years in high school. So I got arrested in like 3 surrounding towns in one day. The detectives kind of brought me around. So that tag got retired real quick.
How old were you?
Technically, I was underage. So I got, what the hell? What was it called? I don't know, some term, legal terms. But like I went through court and became legal, old enough to be, to take the charge.
Yeah.
So I ended up being found guilty while I was old enough. But because the crime was committed when I was a minor, it was, I don't know, some sort of stature shit where I couldn't get sent to jail.
Okay.
So I did fucking like retarded amounts of community service for like a whole year.
Wow.
I was on probation for 5 years. I had to pay stupid huge restitution. So I did the whole probation piss test thing with a PO in Kingston as a kid.
Yeah.
And like if I, even just to come to Brooklyn to do a portfolio review, I had to get permission to leave the town.
Wow.
Or the state or whatever the hell it was. I had to get permission to leave. It was messed up. So that tag got retired around that time. My kids I grew up with in Kingston know who that was, but that name came, Ewok came later because I had to switch it up. And it was just 4 letters that I felt were cool to play with, very annoying. E's are cool, W's can be cool, O's are annoying because it's simple. But the W complexity next to a simple letter was a challenge. And K's as the end piece was a nice thing I thought would look cool. And plus at the time, I didn't think anybody would write that. Until years later, you find out someone else.
I have questions about that.
Yeah, it's just how it goes, man. Everybody writes something like 5. There's 5.
Too many people on this planet.
5, 6 different Ewoks.
Yeah.
I'm friends with the other main Ewok now. Like, as far as I'm concerned, there's only 2 Ewoks.
Facts.
But we laugh because we'll send each other another Ewok from some other country. And I'll be like, yo, when'd you do this? And he'll laugh. He'll send me something back.
And I bet you two started at the same time.
Yeah, we kind of did, I think. I think if we do our back story, I've listened to things he said.
He's ill.
Yeah, he's dope. I mean, I give him his credit. Give him his credit. Like, you know, if you know me long enough, you know like what we went through. And we had a lot of crossover friends in the early 2000s. And then at some point, I ended up getting flown to a jam in Croatia.
Wow.
And he got flown out for the same jam. So that was the first time we got to sit down, break bread, talk face to face, bury a bunch of shit, and realize who was instigating stuff. And again, man, like, he's a talented dude. We're both left-handed, which is interesting.
Really?
Yeah, and he's very politically aligned with a lot of the things I believe. But we're from 2 different cities. But it's weird because there's so many similarities.
You're spiritually connected.
It's super weird because there's a lot of similarities, but he's a completely different person, different city.
Wow.
And, you know, different approach, full-blown different approach.
We're talking about Ewok MSK, who's fucking dope.
HM MSK, you know, give him his credit.
Fire.
He's paid his dues.
Fire.
And he's a cool dude, man. I can't lie. Like, he's a cool dude.
Didn't you guys battle in 2000 in Illinois?
In St. Louis. 98 was supposed to be the first battle. Didn't really go as planned. We both talked shit for 2 years and returned back in 2000. And I reserved a place for him so he couldn't go far away. Because I was like, this is your spot. But it was cool. It was a fun time. We have a lot of history with it.
I remember that wall. That wall was dope.
Like I said, if he was an asshole, it'd be very easy for me to talk shit.
Yeah.
He's a good, solid dude. And we have a lot of mutual friends. And I give him his credit. He's a good dude. So.
Yeah, he's dope for sure. Let me ask, you just explained how you like the letter structure and the letters that are used. Are you a Star Wars guy, I would assume?
Oh, yeah, I grew up with that shit. Me and my pops. Like, my dad bought all the toys, the little figures for me. Yeah. I'll go visit my dad because my parents were separated, so I'll come home with a couple new figures. And shit. So, yeah, I watched the original Star Wars with him at the theaters. Indiana Jones with the theaters with him, Goonies. I got to go see movies with him in Paramus at the movie theater and shit down there. I think it's long gone, but that's
Paramus, wow.
That's where I saw all my movies was with my pops in Jersey. Paramus, yeah.
So the art form known as graffiti, to some is considered a crime, right? Others, such as yourself and I, we believe otherwise. And we appreciate it much more beyond just writing on a surface. With that being said, what does the word graffiti mean to you?
So it's a mixed question because, like, I have friends who passed away, like Phase 2, who hated the graffiti word. He called it, like, don't say the G word. And it's just a perspective of him seeing it from the 70s and where it went, and it left a bad taste in his mouth. So, like, people like him refer to it as, or what we would consider what we do as style writing. That's like the wild style, you know, lettering that's gotten so developed and complicated and drawn out like 20 feet long.
Yeah.
They call it like style writing. It really depends on who you are, where your backgrounds are coming from. But to your question, and for me, graffiti doesn't have that connotation. Vandalism is what you're talking about, and what the common man on the street who sees tags and throw-ups, they say it's graffiti because the media has got them thinking it's graffiti, but really what they're talking about is what they would consider to be vandalism. And technically, I don't think graffiti is vandalism. I think vandalism, I think tags and throw-ups and illegal shit would be considered vandalism. It's all considered graffiti, but I don't think graffiti in itself is an illegal thing. I think when it's done illegally, it's considered vandalism.
Totally.
I think when it comes to a police charge, maybe that's called making graffiti. But like realistically, if you ask me, I think graffiti has more complex descriptions than just something being illegal. And
It's got more of a message.
I think if you want to consider like breaking a window, that's vandalism. You know, writing on a church, that's vandalism. When it comes to graffiti, there's more of a backstory, style, history. It's more of an archaeology kind of thing to me. It's more complex than just throwing it all into some category with throwing a rock through a window. It's not the same thing.
Totally.
You know? My take on it.
In my personal observation, you know, throughout the years, like obviously we just already confirmed, I'm not technically a graffiti artist. I dabbled, but I was more of a fan. I know a lot of graffiti artists and stuff. And from me being around graffiti artists a large portion of my life and seeing the lifestyle they lead and stuff like that, in my observation, to be a real graffiti artist, you have to be a special type of person. It requires a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah, it does.
Dedication.
Definitely.
And in my opinion, you got to have screws loose.
I could see that.
You got to have some screws loose.
They definitely all do.
Yeah,
one way or another. Whether it's whether they're keeping them together or not is another story. But everybody I've ever met through graffiti,
little screws loose.
Their screws are loose.
There's something there.
Yeah,
not a bad thing. I think I'm batshit crazy, but graffiti artists, little screws loose too.
Totally.
At what age did you really start to take graffiti serious? We already talked about you starting in your journey, but when did you really start to say, like, I'm going to take this full throttle, full pedal on the gas?
I think probably after that Patterson Jam, which I think was like 93 or 94. I mean, I was terrible at that event, but what I got...
Shout out Snow.
Shout out to, I think, this guy Mitch, who...
Hi, Mitch.
Organized the whole event. But I mean, that's where like I met, you know, all the artifacts at the first time. Wow. Saw him perform on the rooftop of this fucking building.
Rest in peace, Tape.
I met Louis 167 for the first time.
God rest his soul.
Yeah, rest in peace, Louis. I met all the hard rock dudes, Psy, and my boy Ted was there. So I got to sit and watch these guys. But to me, I got to sit and watch like Sub, Gaze, Cause, my boy Fact, this kid Greed, Cycle. All these guys were painting in front of me. And I'm just a fucking little teenager just sitting on the ground watching.
Like a sponge.
Oh my God. To sit and watch Sub do character all day long with like his little things. And like Gaze, who's just a mad scientist throwing paint at the wall and whatnot. I took that fuel back with me. And it was like, you guys are all fucked now. Because they're all kind of like, their careers were sort of like starting to come down because they already got out of it what they wanted. But I didn't get what I wanted yet. So when I was like really blossoming, I linked up with like Nace, C's, MSK, and like these guys, rest in peace, John. So like they were from my generation behind those Jersey guys that I was just telling you about, like Gaze and at that Patterson Jam. We all kind of rode the same wave because we had that energy from what we saw from like that early 90s era through TD from Undercover Magazine. It all came from my inspiration was from seeing his magazine. And then I wanted to do that shit. Whatever the fuck they were doing, I wanted to do that. So I was off to the races, years of just being toy, but finally figuring out around like 95-ish where I felt like I knew how to execute in the dark, under pressure, like we were talking about. And then when 96 came around, I was off to the races. I stepped into the fast lane with all the tools that I needed to fucking just fly.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't ready, it probably wouldn't have aligned right. But I had all my shit in order by the time I got to the city.
Wow.
In 96.
That's bananas.
Yeah. And then it's just a blur. You don't think about it. It's not like, I got to go do it another year. It's just, I just painted. I didn't give a fuck. Years,
kept going.
Decades of just painting and not thinking about it.
That's interesting that Patterson Jam, which is so close to me and our location right now.
Yeah, we have to.
That started it all.
I want to see it, man. I want to walk through there and just film and be like, this was here. This is where I did a piece, a character. Like, because I painted on the far left, like on day 2 or something.
Before when we leave, and I'm bringing you back to the spot,
I'm gonna drive by it.
We're gonna go by.
Yeah,
I promise you.
Incredible.
Promise you. Cool. I want to ask this: when you started painting, taking it seriously, what kind of equipment were you using when you started? Do you remember the first type of cans you were using?
Yeah, Krylon was the most accessible and easy to use. Rust-Oleum and American Accents had better colors, but the cap system was fucked up. You could find fat caps that work on Rusto, but the skinny caps didn't make any sense to me. I would come to the city and I would see parking lot pieces with like Sess and Clark, who were clearly using Rust-Oleum and American accents. They had the best colors. The Bombers were using the Rust-Oleum and American accents because it was solid and it had pop colors. But these guys, Sess and Clark, were doing pieces like fine lines, like long, clean, fine lines with these cans. I'm like, how the fuck are they getting these lines? I use New York Skinnies. They don't even fit in a can, like a Rust-Oleum can. I'm like, how is this happening? And so I just found out years later they were doing certain shit at the time. It was probably ahead of the curve. But
like what?
Shaving down the stem of the cap to fit into the valve system, stuff
like what your
that.
boy Totem does.
Yeah. So, but there was probably also other caps at the time that I just didn't have access to. But I fell in love with Krylon's pressure. It was watery as shit, but that allowed me to do blends and like shadows because it was so whack. But if I got my hands on some of the older Borden cans, it had like milky white cream in it. It was like a slate blue or baby blue would have like a thickness to it that other colors didn't have in the line. So if I find older cans, like pewter grays and shit, it was like watery, but it was still thick enough to cover.
Yeah.
You know, there was like pinks and shit that were thicker than like the yellows. And then later on, the line just went to shit. It just all was trash.
Wow.
It was really, really bad. And then it led into when like the European paint kind of got woven into our palette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this to go off on a side tangent. Before we leave, right next to my car, there's some vintage Rusto I'm going to show you.
Okay. I'll tell you about the background.
When I bought the house.
They were in the garage?
They were there.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm curious.
And, I love that stuff. Are you familiar with obviously you definitely are, the cap matches color people? And are you familiar with, what was the name of the fucking DVD? I can't figure, but it was basically a freight forward DVD. But one of the guys that is with Cap Matches Color has a section in it. Something Joe is his name. I'm a little drunk right now, so I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
But he shows his vintage spray can collection.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you this later because that particular segment, for some reason, somebody uploaded it on YouTube. It's going to blow your mind. I'm talking vintage Rev Devils, avocado, all these Indian spice, all these American accent, all these crazy colors. This guy has all that shit.
So we brought up Nace a minute ago. That guy had access to like a weekend flea market. And like every time he would come to the city to pay on a weekend or hang out, he would always bring like a cool can for me, like a little gift. Wow. I mean, at this point, I was not seeing jungle greens. I was not seeing avocados. Cans like this were like folklore because I never saw those upstate. I saw them on the trains. I realized what they were. Wow. I never saw the cans till Nace brought me some. And he's like, yeah, I got a flea market on the weekends. I can go and get all the paints, like all these old cans. And he was hooking me up with like the craziest cans for my collection. I had like a nice little collection at the time. And he would see like, oh, you're missing pastel yellow or whatever. He would come back or like crazy, crazy colors he would bring me as a gift.
Wow.
So like, rest in peace to Nace. He was like a real unique motherfucker. I wish I could see like what he would be doing today if he was still here.
It's similar to like what Jay Dilla would be doing with music,
You wish you could see what it would have turned into.
I know.
He was such a unique dude,
amazing.
Man. He was such a cool cat, and his laugh was just like the best laugh ever.
Rest in peace,
and he was like, it was a tragedy, man. So
Rest in peace, man.
He was one of the first ones that really hit hard when he passed away. And I was like not ready for that kind of stuff, man. And I see it so much now. It's really morbid, but like every fucking month we're losing like really good people, and it's like it really sucks because it's almost like a bad joke. Like all these good people are getting taken from us while all these scumbags and like crabby, dirty, horrible people are still here. And it's just like, do they know something that we don't know? Like it's better somewhere else? Like what's going on?
That's just the irony of life.
It's really horrible, man. It's really horrible. And it's like it's the only thing I can do is to try and keep their name alive and like spend a day maybe painting their name and like keeping them in my head. And like that's my how I can't do funerals no more. I said it to you a minute ago. Like my boy Louis' funeral was today in Castle Hill, and I can't do them anymore, man. Like it just breaks me up too much.
Listen, bro, I'm with you. I
have to memorialize them differently now, and I channel it into something else. So yeah, it's just tough, man. But anyway, let's get on a better topic.
I work on the railroad, as I already told you, and we just lost a fellow conductor a couple weeks ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Rest in peace, Carlos Vidal. He was one of my mentors when I first hired out. That shit was rough. But, it has to do with age and just, rough. Anyway.
Yeah.
One thing that in my opinion, needs to be brought to attention to graffiti writers and just people in general that aren't familiar with the craft, is how difficult it can be to develop can control to paint with aerosol, at a high level. It's extraordinarily difficult. There's a strong relationship with, between physics and graffiti that most people, especially normal people, they don't really realize. So I got a question for you. How long did it take you personally to get a good grasp, to develop a relationship with a can of paint, to speed, to angles, to wall distance, cap pressure, all of that, to truly become, one of its, become one with its functionality?
It's weird because I don't really remember that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. Because like when I first started doing pieces, I would see people who would get nervous to do a thing. Like I would hear stories that like these trained painters, they would have one guy sketch out everybody's name because they were better in the crew to do names. And then everybody would fill in the piece. And then somebody who had like the straightest lines in the crew would come through and outline everyone's piece. And I would hear this stuff and I'm like, I don't understand that. I mean, I get it, don't get me wrong, but like I don't understand why that would be a thing, because like it was very easy for me to get what I felt was like a good control. And I was trying to like experiment with like holding the can sideways and doing like smoky, blendy kind of things, to where I got a good grasp on like what you could get on different angles and the pressures and shit and the long lines. It's really just a comfort. Like if you think I'm going to do a long line and mess it up, you're going to mess it up. But if you're there warmed up, I'm not thinking about anything. It's just an idea and then it's just there. It's a weird thing. It's like an extension of my own finger. Like you could point and draw a circle around a thing with your finger. That's all I'm doing. And I always had this thing like, yeah, maybe I mess up, but paint goes over paint. So what's really the issue? If I mess up, just paint goes over paint. I'm not worried about it. And I would tell people, like I would help them with their thing. Like, why are you so nervous? Don't worry about it. Just do this. And they'd be like, Jesus Christ, dude, I've been here for 10 minutes. I'm just like, yeah, don't think about it. Paint goes over paint. What are you worried about?
Oh, that's true.
You mess it up, just do it again. Just paint.
That's true. Paint goes over paint.
Yeah. So what are you holding this? Oh, I got to do this long straight line. Like I would have people who've been painting all day long and they'd be like, yo, can you do my highlights? Really? Because a highlight usually happens at the end of a piece.
Yeah.
You got like one shot to do a white. And if you mess up, it goes into the outline or it goes into the fill.
Yeah.
And they would sit back and I would go, do. Here's your can back. I got to go finish my piece. And they'd be like, what the fuck did this dude just do? Because I don't care about this emotional scarcity. Like, oh my God, I'm going to mess it up.
Well, it's also because you have experience.
Yeah. I think it's just like the more you do it, the better you're more comfortable with it.
Of course.
It just comes with it. So I don't really remember a time when I was like stressing at like that.
Well, it definitely takes, like I said.
And now it's easier than ever. Like these kids who never painted graffiti are studio artists, are painting portraits of photo quality photos, faces on a wall.
Wow.
They're doing it like, because it's very easy. The caps and all the can stuff now, it's super easy.
Well, it's definitely, it's like coming from my perspective when I dabbled, it definitely takes practice. Yeah, it's not fucking easy.
Yeah, but also you just figure out what's what. Yeah. It just comes with figuring out what's what, And
then airbrush is a totally different animal.
Same thing,
When you're starting to do that, it's different, pulling away. Fine-tuning the tip and all that. It's tough. It's tough.
What she said. Sorry.
No, it's cool. Most of the listeners, like I said, previous, they're not privy to graffiti culture and stuff. So there's a lot of things they're not going to understand, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to understand the severity of the graph game. And what I mean by that is when it comes to gaining props the right way, graffiti crews, territories, beef, things like that. How was that learning experience for you early on to know how to navigate properly through that scene, through that space, to gain respect in comparison to the graph game nowadays, and the difference between those eras?
It's tough because, like I said, I came to the city. I'm from New York, but I came to the city in the 90s. So in my mind, I already missed the boat with the trains. Like it was a wrap. So what was I to lose? The heyday already came and went. I'm just trying to live in the city and go to school and try and just love the city, the music, we'll talk about that too. But like, I was just happy to be in an environment that it fulfilled who I was. So I was doing cool stuff. I liked what I was doing. I liked what my friends were doing. We were doing unique shit at the time.
Yeah.
But the hierarchy was set up in a way they were not giving anybody props. If you weren't from that school that they came from, you were the outsider no matter what. You were just, you're just from out of state, or you're from upstate or whatever.
Yeah.
It was, that's just tough love. They don't give you props easy. They're not gonna. And so I would see other people who maybe were like kissing up to some other bigger writer, and then they would get props just because they're his friend. And I'd be like, I'm better than those dudes. Like, why is that dude getting props? And then it makes you fucking jaded.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I gotta like disassociate from all this, just focus on my own stuff and just be dope. And it sounds like an easy formula, but I loved it too much to give a fuck about what other people thought. And as to where I looked at other people and I could tell they were just trying to do it to get a pat on the back.
Yeah.
Like, I always loved the purity of stuff. And I could see the two sides of different people. Like, if I saw one dude who's going all city with tags, I could tell, and then I saw another person doing the same exact thing, I could tell which one was enjoying it for the enjoyment of doing it, and which one was doing it just so they could say they did it.
Huh.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
like,
totally.
I could tell there's a purity in the way that guy's doing it. He really loves what he does. And, that guy's doing it just so he could say he did it.
You could tell in the art and the styles and the lines.
And I could really tell. Same thing with piecing and like doing like wild pieces. I would see people in a routine. They got to paint every weekend. They got to show up and do a piece because that's what they do. And they're just not liking it. They're just going through the motions. And then I see people who show up and they're just quiet and they're just in their moment. They're locked in and they're in
zoned out
and they're loving it. I could tell. I could see it. Even today. I don't care what city you point at. You show me a piece, I'll tell you if that dude's going through the routine, the motions, or if there's somebody who no one's ever heard of and is really dope and he's loving what he does. I could tell you right off the bat. Liking it. Hey, he's burnt out. This guy's doing cookie cutter pieces every week. I could tell you that. And there's a lot of people that
experience.
I could tell you. A lot of people can see it too, but they don't think like that.
Yeah. Well, that comes with experience and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I've been burnt out too, man. I've been burnt out, and I have to find what's fun for me to keep it fun. Because I could look back at my own stuff and be like, I wasn't having a good time then. Then I flipped something and I was having fun again.
Yeah, totally.
Having fun again, so I could see the difference and stuff. I try. If I don't feel it, I don't paint.
When you're painting pieces on a wall, is there a particular group of colors or shades that you get the most joy to paint on a wall?
Nah, I've said it again in other interviews. It's a formula. It's not really the colors per se. I try to take the emotional attachment out of the colors, and the color for me falls on a number chart.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
So, like, if the numbers work, I know that this end result is going to be a success. And then, in hindsight, I could look back and see how the colors all work. Oh, that was a cool color choice palette. But I'm not looking at the palette like in the cans on the ground and saying, oh, this would be a good piece. To me, they're all numbers. It's like I can see each color is a number. And if one of those numbers doesn't make sense with the formula, then it's going to throw the whole piece off. So that can comes out. And like, you could just pull a crate of shit at me and I'll pull the successful numbers out of those colors and make it work.
So this interests me greatly about you. And it was a question that I had for later on, but since we're tackling it now.
Oh, so real quick, sorry. That also works inverted. So the color palette that I'm comfortable with is light fills, dark outline, but I can invert it and do dark fills, light outline with the same reverse formula. So sorry. That's just
No. That's what interests me about you is I during my research with you, I come to realize that you have this formula where you don't view colors as colors, you view them as numbers. And that's what correlates to what you're going to do on the wall.
Yeah.
How did you come to this realization or this formula where you correlate numbers to colors?
I think it's verbalizing it to other people out loud. Then you realize, oh, I'm doing some weird shit. And now having to explain it to somebody, I kind of have to put myself in their shoes and say, like, well, how can I say it to him so they understand it? And so having people around me that I'm trying to explain stuff to, I had to verbalize it and put it into I didn't think numbers until I had to explain it to somebody.
So
And
it
I
was you
like,
having to explain
Yeah.
it is what made you come to
So
this
I'm like,
conclusion.
imagine this is 1 to 10, and this color is a 3, and that color is a 7, and your outline is a 10, and so like having to explain it in a way that they get it. Now all of a sudden there's a roadmap there. So that's what my book is about, stuff like that.
Yeah, I have questions
And
about
that's
the
just
book later.
That's just the color theory chapter. There's other shit, outlines, folding letters, drop shadows, light
If you
source,
may, can you give me
line weight?
Can
all
you
the
give me
stuff.
for the listeners an example of what you mean? Just because it makes sense to me, but
do,
to them it doesn't.
I do, but I don't want to say it until you see the book. I can't say that stuff.
Okay,
I can't,
sorry, guys.
I can't give you the cheat sheet because then it's not gonna. It's letting the cat out the bag because I literally wrote this during COVID and like it's being made right now, the layout and all this stuff. I'm telling you what I can tell you without telling you too much.
No, it makes sense to me.
And it's funny because to do it, I did cool stuff. Like I pulled out a whole bunch of cans and I made photographs of groups of color and put the numbers and showed successful, fail, do, don't. And it's just like what you would do if you go to do a piece, you're pulling cans out of your collection and you're going to the wall.
Wow.
And I just did it like that. Like I pulled colors together and I explained why they work, why they wouldn't.
Wow.
And so the book is mostly wordage with some tie back to photos that explain it. So like I'll pull pictures that explain why what I'm talking about works.
Even better.
Yeah. But I mean, this is all trial and error. I've done tons of things that have failed, but the things that are successful, there's a reason why.
Okay.
And so you have your go-tos. If I need it to succeed, I go to my formula. If I want to be artsy and fuck around and try some weird shit, I turn that off and just throw paint. And then halfway through, I'm like, okay, I got to dial it in and make it work. Apply the formula back.
Okay.
And it kind of layers up and shit like that.
So wait for the book, but
Yeah, the book.
trust me, it's going to be good.
Yeah, that's just...
A lot of your early stuff, I love. That's how I was introduced to you. That's what I'm most fond of. It had a lot of wild style, crazy letters, a lot of angular shit. But a lot of it, which I found was interesting, was single color fills.
Yeah.
But to those that are listening, there's just one color filling in the base of the letter. If you don't know graffiti, this is what I'm referring to. There's an outline to the letter, and there's a color that fills in the outline. A lot of his early shit was single color fills, but it had such depth, such life to it, even though it was only one
color.
fucking color
I'll send you pictures to cut
filling
away.
in the piece.
You can cut away to some photos, yeah.
Later on, you evolved into this bright, vibrant, brilliant, colorful menace. Was that a purposeful thing?
Absolutely.
To start with single colors at first?
Yeah.
What was the story behind that?
So to take it back before me, I had this image in my head that the West Coast was notorious for hiding their outlines behind a bunch of colors. The West Coast would throw every color at a piece. They'd have like 20 colors in a piece and your outline is lost.
Wow.
But when you stand back, it looks like a whole bunch of crazy cool colors. But in the East Coast, we want to see letters. And so the West Coast caught up later with that. They simplified it later. But when I came up as a toy, I immediately knew, don't hide behind color. Let your letters speak for themselves.
Wow.
So it was a choice, a decision to do a few years of not relying on color, allow my mistakes to be public. Don't hide. Run at it. Like go full force. Yeah. Embrace your weaknesses. It'll force you to grow. So I was doing what I would do as a solid one color fill, one color outline, and I would let the letters be the center stage, the star of the show. And then later on, I would do a 2-color piece. Still simplified and not relying on color, but it wasn't until I felt like my letters were good enough to where I could actually just start adding some color. And then there was an era where we were doing drop shadows and light sources and picking a light source, and then there was a shadow on that side, and you had to apply it to all the folds and letters and behind it. So like,
which would give it depth.
Yeah. And so that would be like a tone darker than the fill. So like it might be a baby blue piece, but the shadow might be true blue. And it all had to like correlate to the fill. And so it just depended too, like what you had at the time, you know? But most of the time I just love doing white pieces with black or red outline or baby blue with a red outline. It was dope. It's a fun era.
No, but like your single color pieces, like you said, you would create depth. So each letter would stand out on its own.
Well, like your Sauce Talk logo.
Yeah.
It's a yellow piece. To me, that's just a yellow. You're letting the letters speak. You want people to read it. So why not make it all yellow? I've done full yellow pieces with a black outline.
Huh.
You know, and the 3D is just one solid 3D color. So like, I'm all for that. And I have, again, there's different gradients of like pieces to me. Like Nas as a rapper, he can make a track that's just a cool track. But if you want to put him in a corner and battle him, he's going ether on you.
Yeah. Facts.
So like I have a range. If I go to a jam, I got like a 7. I'm going to do a 7 for you.
Yeah.
If I see something really dope, 2 pieces over, maybe I'll do an 8. I'm saving those 9 and 10s for when I got to go for the jugular. And that's, I have to step up to the wall with that energy that day because it's going to wear me out.
Yeah.
But I save those for when you need them.
Totally. No, I
and that
love
might have
your
all the
early
colors.
shit.
That might have all the colors if I wanted to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just different levels.
I love your early shit. Because like I said, it's single color, but it has such depth. Even though it's only one color filled, with your use of proper shading and color gradient, it still pops off the wall. And I always was like fascinated because your shit was so angular and everything was so cushiony together, but it still had such vibrancy, even though it was only one color.
Yeah,
love that.
My crew we were the only ones doing that at the time. It really wasn't seen.
So good.
You weren't seeing that in New York. New York had a different thing going on.
So good, man.
They weren't doing that. The most you'd see was like a crew would do a wall and everybody would kind of like match the colors together. They'd all do the same color palette. That was the closest thing to that you would see. But we were doing, like if I did an all white piece, my guy next to me wouldn't do an all white piece. He would just do like a gray piece or a red piece. Yeah. But that was the look for a while. A couple of years we were doing that.
I personally appreciated it and loved it. And, you know, over the years.
It had impact. It has a big impact.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Over the years, being a big fan of yours and watching you develop, because any artist in general, a good artist, should evolve over time.
Sure.
Whether you're a music artist, you know, a painter, whatever the case may be, whatever your craft is, it's important that you have to evolve. And watching you over the years, being a fan of yours, evolve is not only refreshing, but it's cool to see the different chances that you take and the different looks that you start to accumulate over the years.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
You know, what's more important to me is originality. And I find that a lot of artists, you know, I tend to be a bitter individual myself.
You said bitter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see
I have it in me, trust me.
You tend to be bitter too.
Yeah.
Which is why I kind of related to you at an early stage of me observing how you operate.
Keep it under wraps.
Seeing how people evolve or not evolve, lack thereof. Your originality stood out to me because when I look at an Ewok piece, Ewok One, not Ewok Two, and sorry, MSK. Ewok, I consider him Ewok 2 just because you're closer to me.
I appreciate it.
Watching you reinvent yourself and seeing your art progress as the time went on, watching you evolve was so refreshing because I saw you just constantly changing yourself, but still remaining original. How important is it to you to remain original in your formula?
It's super important for me. I mean, I come from the era where you just don't bite shit, and like that was a big thing. Can't be a biter. You can't copy things. And I think nowadays that's just a regular thing. People copy all the time. And like I would hear these like old school rappers going like, everything's been done under the sun, nothing's new. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, I can go and do some new shit tomorrow, and you can copy it. I don't care. I'm gonna go do some new shit the next day.
Yeah.
Like you copy that and you got props off of it and I did it first, go ahead, you can have it. I got so many other things I can do. I'm not worried about it. And in my mind, I always felt invincible. Like, I don't care. I'll just go do some new shit that no one's seen yet.
Yeah.
And like, I always had this thing, like there's always something out there that can be done that hasn't been done yet.
Of course.
And if you can't find it, turn off, shut the TV off, just focus and you'll find something inside you. And like, I just never understood this, like, oh, everything's already been done. And everyone's, it's like, no, dude, there's things out there that haven't even been done yet. And I'm still seeing things that people are doing that I'm like, holy shit, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
That's dope. It just came out last year. And like someone that, like Totem's notorious for doing things first. He's done things that we've all seen maybe in like graphic design or something. he'll take it to the wall and render that shit, and you're like, Jesus
He's
Christ.
the best. I fucking love you, Totem.
Yeah, Totem's the man. Shout out to him, his kids.
He's one of my favorite writers.
He's
dude.
He's a one of a kind, man. Straight
For
up.
real?
Yeah, he's a one of a kind, and like he's king of bringing a lot of things to the book. Fire pieces and fucking
He's the
holograms.
best,
He's just that dude. So, it was good to come up alongside him and challenge what I was doing with a guy like that. Like we all worked off each other and like pushed each other and supported each other in certain things. And
to me, that's the important part, is to stay next to people that are incredible, because then they'll naturally, by design, elevate you to your best ability.
Sure. And you're inspired off each other, man.
Yeah.
It's definitely, you need inspiration sometimes, man. It kicks you in the ass, gets you in gear.
For sure. I've always been a fan of Totem. I love Totems.
Yeah.
He's got such movement in his pieces, and I love when he did that Wu-Tang piece with the fucking, bro.
Yeah.
That shit is bananas.
He has a bunch of classics that are just those.
He's unbelievable. His Mech Warrior shit is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. So I got to highlight him a little bit and give him his flowers in my book, and I got to go to him and say, I need a little bit of this. Send me this because I want to put this in the book.
Sick.
Yeah.
And he's a fucking kid factory for savages.
Yeah,
he's got a bunch of kids that are sick at everything.
Man. Shout out to the squad. They're killing it. And they're all like, they got good heads on their shoulders too.
Hell yeah.
Sinner, Reza, shout out to you guys, man. They got good heads. They're phenomenal, man.
Growing up through
Striking Cobra. I got to give them
Striking Cobra. Shout out to Striking Cobra. What are some of the writers that inspired you throughout your career? Whether it's from the beginning to present day, what are your main, let's say, top 5 hypothetical? And I'm sure that's probably greater than that, but.
Yeah, that's a weird question, man, because it always has to do with like where my head is at the time. But I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, and I just looked up this dude on Instagram, and what he's doing now is completely not what I got into him for. But there was this dude in San Diego named Dyze1, D-Y-Z-E.
I'm not familiar.
And sometimes I think he did a D-Y-S-E. But in my earlier years when I was like in high school, he had like a clothing brand, and my guy Sean had like some of his shirts in the store. But he had like the craziest, like just arrows, like wild style arrow pieces, like just tons of arrows, just lines going everywhere,
just interwoven.
But it was just like it was like his version of what like an '80s New York wild style would be, like evolved into the '90s. And I didn't know who he was, didn't know where he was from, but I saw this lettering, and he sent my boy had a store like some stuff to hang in the shop or whatever. And I remember like early on going, damn, this guy's letters, he's making dope D's, and his arrows and everything just looks really cool. And it felt like a New York thing to me, but I didn't know who he was. I found out years later that he was from San Diego. And like when I find myself going through burnout phases, I try and rekindle that feeling of like when I really was inspired, and like I'll go back and look at the Star Wars book or whatever and try and find what I was loving at the time. And I remember thinking about this dude Dyze's stuff, and I went to go look him up, and he still has a clothing brand to this day. But it's more like, lowrider cars and like West Coast kind of writing. But he's still, whoever this dude is, and shout out to you, you're out there, I'm sure someone will tell you, this dude's talking about you. He still has this like, but now it's more of like, it's a West Coast look. But I'm giving this dude his props. Like, he was one of the first early 90s graffiti pieces that I saw that I was like, this dude is dope. Whoever the hell this Dyze dude is, he was doing sick pieces.
Wow.
Really dope D's and Y's and Z's, like the classic letters in graffiti, and big arrows, and it just looked, and I can't find that stuff anywhere. Like if there's pictures out there somewhere, somebody send them to me, because I remember this stuff, but I can't find it.
Wow.
And for anybody who likes wild style, hunt that stuff down, because it's definitely a dope era.
Damn. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, he's dope. He's definitely dope.
In present day.
Anyway, there's others, but that was just one of my memories. So yeah.
Word. I'm sure that your paint preference has changed over the years.
Sure.
What are you using in present day? Why? And what are some of your preferences in general in regards to paint brands according to time era?
I mean, now currently I use my boy Eric's company, 004 Evolve. Evolve is out of Miami.
Shout out Evolve.
Yeah, shout out to Evolve. Held me down for fucking probably like 15, 16 years now. But yeah, I watched him when he was just distributing other companies, and then he sourced it and made his own
that's
company.
That's how he started?
So I watched him carry like Italian brands, and he had a shop. He's at one of the main shops in Miami, 004. And he was like, yo, I got something coming. Are you down to be into it? And I was like, let's go. And his first wave of cans came in, and he went through the trial and error of like figuring out valves and paint formulas and UV and all the like growing pains that a company goes through. He weathered all those storms, and he's still here killing it with the paint. And like Evolve is like some of the best paint out. Wow. The valves are great, the colors are great, and the price point is great for like a lower price point for people to buy is great. I love it to death.
Wow.
I'll use anything, but I love Evolve.
Obviously, Montana is probably the most popular graffiti paint.
Yeah.
And there's obviously, to those who don't know, there's two. There's the German Montana and there's the Spanish one. The Spanish one being MTN, which being the best one, right?
I don't know. I know there's two versions of it. I don't know. I got to be personally honest. Not saying anything bad about Montana. I just don't like the valve system.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. I can use it. I've used plenty of times. I just don't like it.
What about Belton? They're not around no more, right?
I think they are. That was one of my first sponsors with Belton.
Molotov was the brand, right?
I think that was in the Black Forest. I think this guy Renee. But yeah, that was a cool brand. I don't know what they're doing these days. It was good paint. It was a low valve pressure, and it just was very slow to me. And the colors were kind of muddy, earth tones and stuff like that. I didn't really like it. And I had a hard time getting anything out of them, which was annoying at the time because you're trying to rep a paint and they're not really sending you what you need. It was tough. So I
remember their coverage was kind of really creamy and filling.
Yeah, it was like a matte kind of finish. It was an interesting color palette. It just didn't work with what I was trying to do.
What about Iron Lac? You ever painted with Iron Lac?
I've used it. They got some cool colors. It's a different formula.
Evolve, baby.
Yeah, it's a different formula. Iron Lac. It kind of like it blew up out of nowhere, and they had some cool colors.
Sick.
I don't really have my hands on too much of that stuff, but again, I'll use anything. Like if I have to go visit somebody and they're just like throwing paint at me, I'll use whatever I can.
I mean, I don't know. I
just prefer the valve with Evolve because I know what I can do with like really smooth stuff. I could do like if the temperature's outside, like I'm used to like East Coast temperatures. So if I go to Miami, it's hotter. The cans are more pressure. I have to I have to air it out a little bit. But I love Evolve. I've always loved Evolve.
So recently I saw a video on YouTube, which I loved, and it was a video of your boy Totem. Shout out Totem.
All right.
Showcasing that he only paints with New York thins.
Yeah.
And I found that to be rather fascinating, but I expected it from a person of that level of skill.
Yeah.
So two things. For you personally, how many different caps do you like to use in your arsenal?
3.
And also, do you agree with his mindset regarding the use of all these modern caps and their funky names?
Absolutely. It's a thing. It's like, how can you compare it? I'm trying to draw a comparison. But yeah, so it's very simple. Keep it simple. So Hadra Gracie, Jiu-Jitsu legend.
Shout out Gracie.
Hadra Gracie will do
the GOAT.
Will do 4 fucking moves to any high-level black belt in the world. And the other people know what he's going to do. He's just better at it and can shut them down.
Yeah.
And then you got jiu-jitsu dudes who want to do every fucking move that's trendy this year. It's all over YouTube. They want to do 50 million moves. Just stick to the basics. So you got a fat cap and a skinny cap. And only recently I applied a Lego cap, which is right in the middle. So that's my third cap. Otherwise, it would just be a fat cap and a skinny cap.
Lego is the yellow.
It's a yellow cap because it kind of looks like a Lego head. I guess that's what they call it, a Lego cap.
Yeah, of course.
But when I found it, I was like, wow, this is a nice balance between a skinny and a fat. And it's great. It depends on like what you're doing with it. But
that perfect thickness.
Yeah. So I have a way of painting where I'm sloppy, tight, and I'm done. So I'm sloppy when I'm sketching because I want that looseness and feel.
Yeah, of course.
And then as I get through it, I tighten it up, and then it's done. I'm chiseling back at it, and I'm tightening it up. I'm saving all the annoying stuff for last. But having the middle ground allows it to be like 3 different phases.
Wow.
Loose, tighter, and then super tight. But Totem's application of the skinny cap, it's not about the cap, and I'm speaking for him, but I think I know what he's saying. It's not like the cap is doing the work for you. It's just he knows how razor sharp he can get to the wall to where another cap would go. And you'll hear people painting next to you. It's the cap hitting the wall or the front of the can.
Or the front of the can, yeah, Roger.
And so like if you're thinking engineer-wise, you think the roundness of the can. If you could re-engineer the can to have like a portion of that circular top pushed in, you could get like a half an inch closer to the wall. But you're forced to have it like on an angle to where you get as close as you can without the metal hitting. But if you could get rid of that little can part, your cap would be right up on the wall. You could do amazing shit. That's basically what he's doing with the New York Skinny. Because those caps really had a certain type of line back in the 90s. You could do an incredible line with the Krylons and stuff like that. And so what he's basically doing is just using the way it sprays. It's like it looks like a little miniature fat cap. He's just angling it and getting like the flare to do things that he wants. And there's a razor sharp needle pinpoint you can get that you just can't get with other caps. So the Lincoln hat cap and the fucking whatever.
That video.
Yeah.
If you're out there, watch that video. It's so good.
The hammerhead shark cap and the fucking third leg cap. Whatever all this stuff, the baby arm cap, like whatever they're doing for you, have at it. But, you know, it's what you do with it, not what you have access to. So what you do with it, you know what I mean?
So now me personally, what I took from that video was I love that video.
Yes.
In many ways than one.
Apparently he got flamed on for like actually having an opinion. I'm like, what? Like, who the fuck is questioning him about what he's doing with caps?
That's because people are fucking soft.
Stupid.
Soft like wet kittens.
Yeah, y'all should be happy that he's giving y'all fucking free lessons.
Yeah. Free game from a legend.
Straight up. He's giving you the cheat code and you still can't do it. So make that make sense. He's telling you what to do and you still can't do it.
For real. Me personally, I love that video.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I'm not technically a graffiti artist, but I have quite an understanding of the culture, right?
Sure.
Now, I agree with a lot of what he said, and some of it was kind of like, you know, I'm old. That new culture's kind of like, you don't need that shit. Back in my day, you had to earn your keep, which I also respect. So it was kind of like I just had this overall pleasant vibe of the whole conversation. Although, even though what he's saying is correct, 100%, you know, it's kind of like one of those things like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Sure.
And, you know, if you're skilled enough, you're able to manipulate the tools that you have to what you need to do.
Sure.
But I also, I'm talking like 10% against what he's saying. There's nothing wrong with evolution.
Oh, never is.
And I think
that he's not naive to that too. He knows.
Yeah.
He's just saying half of the shit's bullshit for selling points.
Yes.
But he knows the minute you stop learning, you're dead.
Yeah.
You're dead in the water.
Yeah.
He knows that. He's not saying that.
No, of course not.
He's just saying, I know from experience and an authoritative viewpoint, stick to this and you'll be fine. And his kids are listening to him, so that's a perfect reason. Another example of listen to what I say.
He's a kid factory, dude.
But like what you just said, you're around the craft so much that you can adjust to it and make it better.
Yeah.
So like this dude Qbert, the DJ.
I love DJ
that dude
Qbert,
just
bro.
like created a new turntable or some shit.
The QFO.
Something because he knows this is what we're missing.
Yeah.
Like he's never going to be like, I don't need techniques.
QFO,
but he created something new because he's at the point where he's like, okay, we need this now.
Yeah.
We've done everything we can with this. We need this now.
Yeah.
We don't need the fucking the Jaws cap, the Indiana Jones cap.
That shit was the best part of that video.
Yeah, whatever. But
the
I'm saying,
helicopter cap.
Yeah, the fucking
sling blade cap.
The hovercraft cap.
The mushroom cap.
The pterodactyl cap. Like we don't need any of this stuff. Like,
I know.
I mean, they're cool. It's fun to see them and use them. I mean, they make caps like this for like if you're doing whole trains like in 5 seconds, by all means, use caps like this. That's not what he's talking about.
I know, of course.
These are tools. Like, there's nothing wrong with having more tools.
Yes.
But when you have 50 million tools, you're not focusing on the right stuff.
Of course not.
Yeah. So pay attention.
It's kind of like I'm kind of speaking from a non-biased standpoint, right?
Yeah.
So since I'm not a graffiti writer, I can kind of look a little more outside the box than the average graffiti writer.
Yeah.
I actually approve of what he's saying more than I don't.
I got you.
But the evolution in general, when it comes to basketball, when it comes to football, baseball, music, you know, back then when you wanted to chop a sample, you had to actually cut tape and, loop shit yourself. And tools and evolution are made to make things easier.
Absolutely.
So I get the German skinnies and this and that.
Yeah.
But I also appreciate what he's saying, and I thought that his video was
We all need
valuable.
We all sometimes do need an authoritative figure to lay it down.
Yes.
Allow people to challenge it, and then let it chip away and see where it lands.
Let the conversation
if no one steps into the room and says, all this shit is whack. You're whack, you're whack, you're whack.
That's ignorant.
Now let me know what the fuck is up. Like, if no one's saying that, there's a whole room of whack people.
Yeah.
But if someone comes in and says, I'm not whack, you're all whack, now let's chop it up and see what's up. When the chips fall, we're all going to know where everyone stands.
Yes.
So you can be mad because he's stirring shit up, but it's not like he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, he's speaking facts.
He has to speak facts. And let's be happy. At least it's somebody who knows what the fuck is up speaking facts, because there's too many people who don't know what's up and they're speaking facts.
Yes.
And that's what makes people jaded.
Of course.
I don't want to hear you if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Of course. I just also want to shed light on evolution as a whole, and that if you can make things easier for the next man, it's kind of like raising a kid, right? You have a kid, you had a hard life yourself. You're not going to make your kid's life harder than yours, right?
Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you are. You're going to make them earn
Sometimes you are.
Yeah.
But you can't blame the person that doesn't want to make their kids suffer in the ways that they did. Sure. So it's kind of like me personally, from the outside looking in, I'm kind of on both sides, where I understand totem, but I understand in a smaller sense, because I'm more for totem. But I understand the newcomer that has all these tools to capitalize on said tools, and it'll make them a better writer. So it's kind of like I'm kind of playing both sides of the fence, but more so totem.
It's just when you're being fast and you're getting through the day, you got to be quick. And for me, it's an annoyance just to have to switch caps.
I know.
So I don't want to go through 7 versions. I want to go through 2.
Yeah.
Just the fact that I got to stop and take a cap off and put it on a different, that's annoying. I want to just flow all day. The fact that I have to stop, bend over, pick up a can, look for this, get that cap to work, sometimes I don't need any of that.
It's exhausting.
I just want to be in my zone and just paint. So
trust me,
if I can leave the caps on all day, I'll have the right ones on all the cans.
No, I'm with you.
I don't need 5 versions of different like a fork coming out, and a star. Dude, fuck out of here. Just give me the skinny.
No, totally. Well, I like Totem's video more than you could imagine. I thought that it was important. Sure. I'm just trying to be non-biased.
No, for sure.
But I agree. I love how he can manipulate that New York thin only. That to me is more impressive than somebody that could do this astronomical piece using 5 caps. Shout out Totem. That's all I got to say. To backtrack a bit, I want to get into your animation career, because you went to school for animation, correct?
Traditional, hand-drawn, finger flipping paper animation.
Wow. Where'd you go, and what was that process like?
So I talked to you a little bit before. My homies Ted and Sub were working on MTV for The Head and some of these other
shout out The Head,
Daria or something like that, some other cartoon.
Daria was the best.
Yeah, so they were they had graduated from SVA and they were already working. So I called Sub one day. I said, "Yo, dude, I got accepted at Pratt." I was like, "But I don't know what my major should be." He's like, "Yo, go in animation. Your characters, you got to do animation. Animation's booming in New York." I said, "That's it." Sub just told me to do animation. Fuck out of my way. I'm doing animation, right? This is my mind. Sub just told me this was the dude. He told me to do animation. I get into school, do 4 years, foundation first year, get all the stuff out the way, I was killing it. I have my animation reels are crazy. I still have all my drawings.
I'd love to see them.
It's on VHS. I got to digitize it. But then I graduate and I'm in the market to shop around. So I applied for The Simpsons. I got the job for The Simpsons in LA.
Really?
Yeah. So but I didn't want to move to LA. So I wasn't thinking ahead. I just did they sent me the tapes. It's a timesheet and it's different stuff and you have to draw everything. And I sent it back and the lady called me. She's like, "This is great. When can you move out?" I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, you got the job. Do you want to come to LA?" And I'm like, "Oh shit. I didn't think about that. I don't want to move to LA." And then 9/11.
Wow.
Boom. Because there was a huge MTV Nickelodeon animation industry in New York. I just thought I could work here, right? Work for MTV, work for Nickelodeon.
Wow.
SpongeBob and all this shit. And then 9/11 hit. Industry in New York shut down. So the next thing was Atlanta, was Turner Broadcast had a huge animation. So it was LA and Atlanta. I was this close to moving to Atlanta for Turner, for Cartoon Network and all this shit. And then I got a job at Ecko Unlimited and learned how to scan a drawing.
Hi, Marc Ecko.
What's up, Mark? He taught me how to put a drawing in a scanner, and I got a job doing that. And that trajectory changed completely. Wow. But I still understand animation. So like if I just thought I've done all this work and I don't want to ever have to do that amount of keyframe in betweens, all this stuff, timing and time sheets, it's a nightmare. But I'll do character design. I was like, if I get into that industry, I'll just do character design.
Wow.
Let them outsource the in-betweens.
Wow.
So it's just the backstory.
What was that like? Because animation now is like completely different than what it used to be.
Sure.
How much more difficult was it back then?
Well, it's the school of thought. So animation, like the real animators, believed in weight, secondary animation. Like if a person runs in and he's heavy, he stops, but then his hair flows in second. There's a secondary part to it. And like you would watch like the first Hulk movie, it was animation CGI. And our school of thought would see that and be like, that is the most horrible animation because he doesn't look like he has any muscle weight. He's just flying around and there's no bounce to it. It's just, there's no weight distribution to it.
Yeah.
And that's a heavy thing that they would teach you is like gesture and movement and like secondary movements and like, you know, just a lot of stuff. And it taught me how to draw really fast.
Wow.
So that's one of the key takeaway, if there's anything to come from this, is animation taught me how to draw very fast. Gestural studies, caricatures, I'm very fucking fast. To get an idea, I could draw a 5-second version of you, a 5-minute version of you, or a half-hour version of you.
Wow.
And I'll capture the essence of your move, whatever it is, in that 5-second, 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute.
Wow.
Just an idea you're trying to gesture. I can get it done in real fast or half an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was the most important takeaway is learning how to draw fast. And I apply that to everything else.
Huh.
Like glance at something, capture it. Capture
Really?
it. Yeah. Because there's a certain thing that you want to capture, and you there it is.
Wow.
And so the thing is too, they say like if you're looking at something, you're trying to draw it like a model or a pose. If you're doing this the whole time, how are you looking at what's there? You should capture it, put it down, capture it, put it down. It depends on what it is. My mind, I can take a photo snapshot of it, and then it's there. But if it's a figure I'm trying to learn and practice, I should be visualizing what it is, and I should be able to do it almost without seeing what I'm doing. Huh. Because you're kind of like tracing it with your eye. But my mind snapshots it, and there it is.
Wow.
It's a little different, but that's the main takeaway. The most valuable part of that 4-year fucking college is that.
That's interesting.
That has been the most important value that I've gotten out of that. And I sit and see people draw really slow, and I'm like, I want to pull my hair out. I'm like, this is crazy. You're way too slow, dude. Wow. I'll do 20 drawings in your one, and I'll evolve 20 times faster than that one.
That's crazy.
So that say the more you do, the more evolution you'll get.
Early on in your career, you did characters, right? You always did characters. But it seemed they mostly were, for the majority, random people with these very expressive faces, right? But it was like usually characters in a grand scale, they kind of like meshed into each other. Whereas, you know, later on in your career, you started to do characters that had more of an identity and they created more of this iconic persona.
Right.
I.e.,
Brainlington, Sharkington, Horsington.
Exactly.
Okay, I got you.
So that stuff. What was it that caused that initial shift or focus with your characters to go that route and to give your characters more life, but an identity? What was the purpose behind that?
Recognition this is funny because like, you know, you travel the world and you got people in like Croatia or Singapore or Indonesia and they're like, they know who you are. And I'm like flipping out. I'm like, how the hell do you know who I am over here? And it's like a fanatical, they're like, they really know who you are. They're not just, oh, someone's popular coming. Let's act like we know them. They know who the fuck I am. When that hits your head, you're like, oh, the idea of graffiti is to get recognition. It's going around the world, dude. I'm on the other side of the planet. They've heard of me. Everybody knows who it is. So it's like, well, now what? Now I got to get recognition from that regular person walking by in the street. And I think no matter how much you paint in New York, there's always going to be people that just are not tuned into that shit.
Yeah.
They're just going to walk by you. So I started doing this Art Basel thing every year.
Miami.
And I started to notice the people who are gravitating more towards recognizable things, faces, characters, caricatures, as opposed to the most crazy wild style that I love.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find a vehicle that they can, the common man, common woman can kind of look at and be intrigued by. So I created like a caricature of like an iconic caricature. I had a few of them at the time, like toys I made, like a Horslington guy.
Yeah.
But Sharklington was a design, but like Brainlington was a way for me to create like an interesting caricature, a character for something to look at that just looks like a brain with a big grin and big hands and big feet. It's just like a thing. My goal was to kind of like get people to look at it and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like the common person. But in it is sort of like there's wording in the brain. So
that's my favorite part.
That was a part of like sneaking it in. It's not really important, but it's in there for me. But I wanted the regular person to see it. And I started to recognize like the currency in like having like a caricature, like an iconic, like a Cause has his thing, and like a Coca-Cola has their logo.
A recognizable figure.
Yeah, so I just wanted to play with that. Plus I was making 3-dimensional toy vinyl figures and stuff. So I was like, oh, now why not run with this character for a while? Create a little universe. But, prior to that, I was doing like weird characters, and I had an interest in like the weird stuff, like a juxtaposition of like something cute and happy, but like evil, dark.
Yeah.
A little off, like eyes twitching and a chainsaw or something weird. And then all of a sudden everybody's doing that stuff. So I was like, I backed away from it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love your characters though, but with 2 characters in particular, the Sharklington and the Horslington, those appear to be characters that are in a costume or hiding behind another image. For me as a fan, I portrayed that as there being a deeper meaning to it, as somebody hiding behind something. Was there anything, am I reaching for the fences here, or is there actually something more deeper than I know?
Nah, but it's okay because you're the viewer, so like it's what you take from it. It's not really for me to say. I'm not saying you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you have that viewpoint, and I'm sure people think other things, but I didn't think that.
Okay.
My thing with the Horslington, I think I watched 2 movies in the same day, and I was just drawing, because I used to like watch a lot of weird movies and draw as I'm watching it, like Terry Gilliam or any kind of like weird movies. I draw while I'm watching them film. So I think I saw, what was it?
Interesting.
It was Time Bandits, and I want to say like 300 or some shit, or one of these like warrior movies. So it was the Sean Connery scene in Time Bandits when he's fighting in the desert and he hits like some decaying head off of a guy, and they take like this head home with Sean Connery, and his little kid comes on a horse. So I just drew this demon decaying like horse head on like a warrior. And that it came from like right there. And then it just evolved, and I did it on a skateboard and
interesting.
Turned into a toy. But then the Sharklington, I think, was completely different. It wasn't related to that concept. It was just, I wanted a shark suit. I just like sharks. And then I started drawing faces in the teeth in the mask. So I just developed a little kid out of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's where it birthed.
Yeah, that was after. I mean, Sharklington had made appearances in my paintings years before. Yeah. But it just kind of evolved later on.
That's interesting because...
And I did a guy in a rabbit suit at one point. Kind of didn't really go anywhere.
Huh.
There was I would buy old paintings from like Salvation Army and then put like a little rabbit in the foreground.
Yeah.
It would just be like from the head up, be in the foreground. It would just be rabbit ears with a face.
Yeah.
I think I've seen like a weird farm scenario or something bugged out.
It's funny that you say that because one of my favorite rappers of all time is A$AP Rock. And if you know him early on in his career, I remember reading somewhere that he used to write lyrics while watching movies on acid. So it's kind of funny that
Sounds like a great formula, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you said you used to watch movies and draw these characters, and he kind of draws inspiration from watching movies on acid, and he would write these because I consider him to be one of the most avant-garde, intelligent rappers of all time.
Yeah, he was
the
dope.
most misunderstood, and he's unbelievably, ungodly,
Yeah.
incredible. And it's interesting to hear the two parallels because you're an artist, he's an artist,
Yeah.
but different types of artists, even though he does draw on paper too.
Okay.
But it was kind of cool to hear the two different parallels. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's where you find inspiration in a way to find an end result,
Yeah.
where you think someone else is not doing your same thing. So my thing is like, there was a whole era where I just loved to draw all the time, and I would force myself to do more drawing. So if I'm watching a movie, I'm not drawing, I'm sitting on the couch doing nothing. So I would love to just, like I said, I would glance at something and capture the film in my head, and then as the movie's playing, I'm just drawing it.
Wow.
And when I look up, it's gone. So it trained me to be really quick because I'm not going to rewind it and go back and pause it. If I saw something cool, it's like it's tattooed quick, and I just gesture it, move on.
Do you still do that?
I do at times, but like now when I sit and watch a movie, it's like the lights are off and we're just chilling watching a movie. But
Wow.
But I go through phases where I'll rewatch old movies that I love, and I'll still do that. I have sketchbooks full of stuff, and it looks like you're like, oh, that's from that movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love your characters because they have such drastic emotion in their faces. And I just, for instance, we're going to talk about it soon because I have notes on it, but the Yakk Ballz Freak Show cover, it's many, many people around the entire, perimeter of the 12-inch. And they all have these very drastic, expressive emotions.
Yeah.
And that was my favorite part about your characters is the expressiveness in their faces.
I think nowadays it's not that uncommon. I think you'll see more of that stuff now because there's talented dudes out there I see now that I like it. But I think at the time it wasn't as a regular thing. So like I remember painting that painting. It was 2001. I lived in Washington Heights on Broadway and 151st, and I was up on like the third floor. And it was a hot summer, and I painted that painting in the summertime. And that era for me was like a certain time frame. So like in my head, it was an audience, like a stadium kind of, like the foreground is up close, and then a sea of people just going back, and everybody's doing different things. I think that rabbit dude that I was telling you about might have been in the crowd at some point, and there was like a blimp in the air or something like that. But I just fish-eyed the whole thing as a circular thing, and just a sea of faces. And so you choose the detail in the foreground and you fade it out.
Yeah. I'm so angry.
Yeah, I sold that. I sold that to my guy in LA. I think he's in LA. Anyway, he bought that painting.
That sucks because I asked you a couple days ago.
I got my money's worth out of it too. Let me tell you. Yeah.
I'm so mad. You know what that means? I just need the Siphontology shit. That's what I need.
Well, those I
can't get that.
I have those. They're on pages, and that was when I was digitally coloring. But I actually have those. I'll send you pictures of those. I have the paper.
All right, we'll talk. We'll negotiate. Because then I'm going to need that.
I know you're a fine collector of cool things now, so I don't want to let things go just because somebody wants to buy some shit. If I know it's going to a certain place, and you're telling me about these notebooks and stuff that you have from like Cannibal Ox and all this shit. Like I know you're a collector, so if it lands in your collection, it's in a good home.
Nah,
so
I need that. If I can't have the freak show,
we'll talk. Yeah.
I'll need that. All right. So you keep your face covered, obviously, in this podcast for.
What do you mean? This is my face.
for obvious reasons, right?
I mean, it might not be, but we talk about it.
Yeah. And someone in your line of work, it obviously makes sense to some degree.
I mean, I'm not running in the streets illegally anymore. So I'm cutting ahead of you. So I'm not like wanted, and I enjoy my anonymity. So like, I don't want my face to be the face. I want my work to be the face of it. I'm trying to take myself out of it, even though sometimes it makes an issue out of it.
Interesting.
But I don't want to be the face of it. I want my
respect that.
I want my legacy of all my timeline of stuff to be the forefront. So I'm purposely trying to put myself in the back.
There's a reason I asked that, because I know a lot of cats that are super ill, that are still doing illegal shit, that show their face. So I was only asking.
I can tell you about that too.
From the outside looking in. There's a lot of famous graffiti writers that are still bombing illegally.
Sure.
And they don't give a fuck, and they show their face. So I was just curious from the outside looking in, what is up with that, and why are they openly?
It depends on what city they're in. It depends on the police force at the time. It depends on who's running that police force, if they're a ball buster or if they're just catching a paycheck every week. So in the early 2000s, we had a very bad vandal squad here in New York City. They were kicking doors in all the time. They were raiding houses heavy. So that was an era that made people have to be anonymous. The West Coast didn't have that. They had, the thing about LA is if you get caught doing graffiti, it's a felony. I mean, I don't know what it is now, but like the stakes were higher out there, but they didn't have a detective. To my knowledge, I could be speaking incorrectly, but they definitely did not have what we had in New York City. With Ket, Espo, myself, whoever else, Revs. A lot of these guys all got taken down by a very, very aggressive Vandal Squad unit in New York City at the time. They caused a lot of people to fall into the shadows.
Huh.
And like I told you, I had to move over state lines to avoid getting my house raided because I had 3 open cases, and I was hiding all my photos and stuff and things. I don't want to talk about other things.
Yeah,
I was hiding things at friends' houses because I was fighting cases, and through the grapevine of people who I was associated with at the time, I don't want to bring up, were telling me at walls on the weekends, yo, Vandal Squad is really pissed at you. Just take the plea and get it over with. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? What do you mean the Vandal Squad is telling you to tell me to take the plea? Who the fuck are you talking about? Who are you talking to? And so I was like, whoa. This is too close. And so I moved. Shout out to C's, my boy C's, AM7,
C's
MSK.
A beast, bro.
CSB. So
I love C's.
at the time, he's like, yo, we got a room available. Slide over here. The barracks, 2001, 2002.
I was a freshman or sophomore.
I snuck out of New York and lived in this guy GK, MSK, and C's had an apartment out in Jersey City. I came over state lines to avoid having my Brooklyn apartment get raided. Because I was for like a year, I was living in an apartment. I couldn't even like hang up art. I couldn't like have black books, photos. I was like crossing out like things I didn't want, like a tag on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Because you just didn't know if they were going to be, they don't have a strong case, go raid his house, take his computer. Like this was happening. So I snuck out, went to Jersey for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then when my cases finally finished, I quietly came back in, lived in Washington Heights, and that was that summer when I painted that painting. Around that time, I forget, really.
Interesting.
But I don't know what the question was, but...
No, it was just...
the anonymity. So, yeah, I just appreciate the mystique of it. I always got into it. I love the mystique of who was doing this at nighttime, and it's there when the sun comes up. And
yeah,
I just love that part about it. And it's for the most part, it's gone now. There's no mysterious part of it.
Yeah.
I love the mystique of it.
I was just confused because a lot of cats that like are still doing illegal bombing and shit, and they're showing their face all over the place.
Well, like I said, it depends what you're doing, and it depends on whose job it is to track you down.
Huh.
It really depends.
Oh. Interesting.
You know? Yeah.
So anyway, I'm from New Jersey, New Jerusalem, whatever you want to call it, right? And there's 2 artists, actually kind of 3, but there are 2 artists that are not only some of the best graph writers to ever touch a fucking aerosol can, right?
Who's that?
They're no longer with us.
Oh, okay.
And I'm speaking on Nace and Child.
Okay, well, Child was from Massachusetts.
You knew Child very well, right?
Yeah, so Child was from, I think, Massachusetts somewhere. Somewhere upstate in another state.
But he landed most of his notoriety was...
He painted with the Jersey guys, too. Yeah. So John Nace, he was a plumber, and he listened to... He was super straight edge, didn't touch drugs, didn't touch alcohol.
Which is ironic.
He listened to punk rock music. He was a cool dude. He was very unique, one of a kind, and he just had a different approach. So like there's other guys, this is not treading on what he was. There was a lot of other talented people in Jersey for sure, but he had a unique approach.
He was special.
What was different about him is he was so clean. So clean. It was insane. Like he was also doing one color pieces at the time. He got into different stuff, but there was
lots of one colors.
There was an era where he was doing one color pieces too, but it wasn't the same train of thought that we were doing. But yeah, he was so incredible, and like I miss that dude so much, man. And I found a sketchbook at one point, and I just flipped the page, and I just drew a picture of his face.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, it just hit me. Boom. I was like, holy shit. I was like,
you gotta send me that picture.
I was like, I don't even know what book it's in. I have like hundreds of sketchbooks.
I'm sure.
But it was just in one. I was like, oh my! I turned a page. I was like, Jesus, like that's John. It just bugged me out. His glasses and shit. But and I'm like, what did I draw that when he was in the room with me? Like, where did I do that? It just tripped me up. But and then so Child, I met him at Pratt. He would hang out with us. He was a toy. He didn't really have any style, but would hang out with us, and he was like looking up to us, like, little seasoned.
Child.
Yeah. His name is Jim. And he'd be like, yo, show me how to do this. And one night, we were all drunk. And I was like, you should write child. And I think we used to fuck with him. He was a good kid, but we used to like mess with him, and we'd mess with him a little bit. So like, you should write child. You're really immature, And I gave him a tag, and I said, write it like this. And I literally just took different letters from different people, Frankensteined it. Like, I think I took like Clark Fly DC that has like a little bit of a thing on it. And I gave him like a cursive HIL because it had a flow. Because he wasn't really good at hand style. So I was like, if he has a tag that kind of has like a cursive middle with a cool ending, like a D. And the D kind of was a knockoff of this kid Czar TFO from Bushwick, Bed-Stuy. CZAR TFO. He had like an R that kicked out with a zigzag. And so I kind of made a D that did that. And so I gave him that tag. This is the God's honest truth. This is hilarious. This might have been, say, like a Friday night. We're all wrecked, having this little sit down, drawing the black books. And I do this. I give him the tag, and I say, here, go practice this. Monday morning, I'm stepping off the curb on Myrtle Avenue. A van takes the turn like a bat out of hell. Almost, I'd go back like this. The van almost like, the mirror almost hit my head. And the fucking child tag on the van's flying by. And I'm like, yo, this motherfucker, over the weekend, practiced the tag, went out and bombed the van, and the van almost killed me on Monday morning. I'm like, what the fuck did I just do? And the kid went and ran with it. And so he was painting with some other kids at the time. I forget these kids. He had a little clique of homies that he was painting with. And he was going for his. He was exploring, finding tunnels out in Jersey City. I went out and painted with him one weekend. He's like, yo, come see these spots. There's hardware stores and stuff.
So you Jersey essentially started child?
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird thing to say because in my mind, he never really became much because he had such a small time frame. He went for it, and he had a unique look, but I don't think he actually blossomed to what he could have been. And he had a lot of demons that he was fighting. You know what I mean? So, like, we would always have to pull him aside and be like, yo, dude, chill out, man. Like, you're trying too hard, bro. Like, just be you. You're a good kid. Like, don't do that. Wow. Like, you're fucking it up. Like, you're making a fool of yourself, and, like, we're trying to be cool with you. Like, we're letting you into the circle. Like, hang, be cool. Don't be a dick. Don't be a clown. Don't do things for shock value. But this was around when, like, Jackass was doing stupid shit. And, like, he was fighting a lot to, like, get approval. And, like, I don't think he had good family. So, like, he found a culture and graffiti and something to do. And, like, we just kind of tried to give him a little guidance. Because it was like...
So he found a sense of family.
It's like the pinball machine. We kept having to, like, do this.
Yeah.
Because if not, he's going to wander off. He's a good kid. Good kid at heart. It was a really sad ending. And
rest in peace, child.
Rest in peace
man.
to Jim. Yeah. Jim Burns, I think his name was.
He was ill. The whole, I mean, even the cats he was fucking with, like the PFE cats was, but their style was so.
That's the crew. It was the PFE.
Yeah, Fimo and all them era, Mess, them cats is, but.
Yeah, you're blowing my mind. I haven't thought of those names in years. But
their style was so unique. I mean, they all kind of painted alike, but Child kind of stood out in his own way.
That's what I mean. He had a look that had it evolved, it would have been in its own category. And, you know, he started hanging out with, like, the FX dudes and, like he was really doing his own version of shit. And he was chilling out. He finally was relaxing. He was a little more comfortable with who he was. So he was starting to mature and grow into it. But,
he had a bright future.
Yeah. You know, he was a good kid, man.
Rest in peace.
It was a sad ending. And I told you, and it's a photo. And I hate to, it's like I want to share the photo, but it's just so dark. So, like, I was telling you, on the trains, there was this, under the window, there was like a little gap. You could like put your finger up, put a sticker in the gap, and it would say like 145th Street, or it would be like a digital where the train was going, or the express. And I'm at the platform. This is like 6-7 months after he passed away. And the train pulls in, and right in front of me is a sticker, a little "Hello, my name is Child" sticker stuck up under the thing. And I have a photo of this. I actually have this picture because I just pulled out a camera and took a picture of it. And it's a child sticker 6-7 months after he's gone. This must have been running for 7 months. Nobody else put it up. He put it up before he passed. And on the fucking thing, it says "Last Stop."
Wow.
And I fucking have a photo of that shit. And it's like, I want to share it, but it's a dark photo.
It's pretty dark, yeah.
But of all people, I saw that, and I saw the first stop when the van almost like ran me over. Wow. So I saw the first stop, and I saw the last stop. kind of dark.
What's funny about Child is he was so ill, but like there's no fucking photos of his artwork out there. None.
I have a lot. I have a lot of stuff that he gave me. He would just give me photos because he painted a lot in Jersey that I never saw in person, but he would give me the flicks.
I would love to see them.
Yeah, I have them in boxes. I got tons of shit, man.
You should upload them because, dude, there's literally, seriously.
That's so weird that they're not out there. Yeah, it's just strange.
Google yourself, Child One, damn, whatever. Damn, you know what I mean? There's nothing. There's maybe 2 pieces. That Star Wars wall. Remember that Star Wars wall?
Nah.
There was a Star Wars wall. It was called the Star Wars wall. It was him and a bunch of other cats, and it was sick. But that's like the only one you could find. There's like barely anything you could find, man.
Yeah, I'll dig some up. I'll find them. I'll find a couple.
Yeah, post them up because the world needs to see his talent. He was so good, man. It's he. I mentioned him in this chapter in the book called "Too Much Loss." It's a bunch of kind of trying to give flowers to people who passed. It's a shame, bro.
So he's in it, and I give a little shout out. Yeah.
Another Jersey writer that passed away that I believe you have a connection to is Jerry Gant, a.k.a. Detox the Ghetto.
That's crazy.
What's your relationship with him?
I wanted to talk about him because he used to throw this event called Aerosol Blues, and that was in Newark, and that's where I met Nace and I don't know who else at the time. Maybe Ryan was out there. That's where I met Tame One, Artifacts, all them dudes. And Jerry was just a cool dude. He passed away, and it was horrible. But, I have whole letters. This guy would write me letters. Dope handwriting, and he'd be like, yo, I'm doing this next Aerosol Blues, come out, blah, blah, blah.
Damn.
So, yeah, he was a good dude. He threw these jams. And I could be wrong, but I don't know if someone told me this at one point, but I think he was the one that did all the graffiti and like the Naughty by Nature videos.
Really?
Yeah. So there's like a couple Naughty by Nature videos that has just like generic Naughty by Nature graph in the backgrounds. They'd be like in the backgrounds just with graph. And I think somebody said that's Jerry. Wow. And I was like, oh, that's dope. It's just nice style lettering.
Damn.
90s graffiti. But yeah, Jerry was a solid dude, super cool. Threw great events in Newark, and that's where I met Nace, and we did a show together. Yeah, sad times, but
he was the best.
Yeah, he was a good dude. Jerry was a good dude, and I heard he passed away. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's sad, bro. You paint a lot of homage pieces, like tributes to like other writers, whether they were dead or not, just like friends.
Yeah.
You play with different words from time to time, right?
Yeah.
With that being said, which letters do you absolutely hate to paint? And which letters besides your Ewok ones are you absolutely a fan of?
I don't really think of it like that. Like, I don't have these like voids where I don't want to do things. I'm more interested in like if it's a challenge. I try to take a different, even if my approach might hit a brick wall, I try a different angle.
Okay.
So like it could be double O's. I did a piece last summer for a person who passed away. This guy Goober, who I never met, but my homies in the crew, KD, Knock 'em Dead, What Up Theme, they have a Goober Day every summer. It's like a little celebration for this guy Goober. And everybody sort of does a Goober piece, and like it's been a thing. And Theme's been trying to get me out every couple of years to paint, and I'm like, I don't really know the guy. Like, I don't feel comfortable doing it. And then this past year, he's like, yo, dude, please come out, just do a Goober piece. And I said, you know what? Let me play with the letters. It's 2 O's. Who the hell wants to do 2 O's in a piece?
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's not good. It's not good. 2 O's is hard as hell. So I was like, let me see. In my mind, I was like, if the sketch is coming out dope, I'll show up. Otherwise, I'm going to have to make up an excuse. So I hit him up. I was like, yo, homie, I don't know what anybody else is doing that weekend, but they better bring their A game because I'm coming with the heat. And I sent this sketch, and he was like, yo. And so I came and dropped a dope piece, and one day it was a nice Goober piece. But yeah, I mean, in my mind, I would never want to do a piece with 2 O's, but it came out fresh. Came out super fresh. And there's different letters. R's at the ends can be dope. G's can be dope. I did a lowercase G because it just looked fresh.
Sick.
But yeah, I don't mind doing other names, you know? Yeah, I'm not the guy that just wants to do RIP pieces all the time. I hate that. I'm not into that. That's dark. I don't want to be that, but I like to celebrate someone if they pass. And for me, I spend time with them in my mind, and I'm thinking about them, and I'm really trying to put them through me. And
it's got a purpose.
Yeah, it's for me. You can enjoy it too, but I don't care. I'm doing it for myself.
Yeah. What was it like for you, the transition from doing art on the street to hitting more, fine art pieces on canvas in a more intimate setting where you could formulate, I don't know, like a more in-depth concept for a gallery placement or something like that?
My first show was a result of having to channel my outside energy and anger into paintings because I was literally fighting 3 cases and I was going to court 3 times a month.
Wow.
And so I literally had to take myself out of the street and paint in canvases. And it was a way to like channel that anger and energy into canvases. And
so that's why you started.
Yeah, I have a picture in like my apartment at the time where like I spent like a year painting and I just was like, holy shit, I did like 14 paintings. I laid them all out and took a picture. I was like, this is crazy. Like there's like 14 paintings in the corner. That's my first art show was at Bob Lounge downtown in the city. My first show, I think it was like 2001 or something.
Really?
Like that. Yeah. And it was all because of the result of being arrested in these different situations. Having to like take myself out of that scenario and channel that into like, but the thing about painting is like, it's a different, you're trying to do something different. It's a different, I know people are going to hang it for long term. They're going to look at it every day. So I'm trying to like tap into a different thing.
Wow.
You know what I mean? The graffiti is a different impact in the street. Art is something you look at every day in your house.
Yeah.
And if it gets boring, they're going to take it down and put something else up. I want something that you really discover things like years later that you never saw. So I do multiple layers and, you know, Easter eggs hidden and shit.
Wow, that's interesting to find out why you did that.
Yeah.
But now that you do that, and you have been for a while, in the beginning, you used to do gallery shows.
Yeah, I did a lot.
But that's not the case anymore. You only sell strictly, basically, to collectors.
Correct, yeah.
Where is your stance on the current state of the art world and those stuffy gallery environments?
It's a huge tax money wash. That's my personal overall thing. There's like,
I'm with you.
There's a lot of illegal money going on that gets washed through the art world. And it's just, it's a, you could say the same thing for like the NFTs and the cryptocurrencies. They're all results of having to wash money.
It's money laundering.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, like, let's be honest. If you don't know this, you're probably not paying enough attention.
You're a jerk off.
So you have established, you know, Christie's, Phillips de Pury. There's these houses that have been around forever. They're selling old things, like old art, you know, paintings from collections that are like 30, 40, 50 years old. It's a place to go. That's their eBay, okay?
Yeah.
Etc. But like, there was an era where every corner had a new gallery popping up. People wanted to just have a drinking night with art on the walls.
Yeah.
It was great. Had fun. Met a lot of people. I sold a bunch of cool pieces. It just got washed out. It was an early phase when it was doing good stuff. Then it just got washed out. But there is still a place to wash money in LA. Mexican cartel drug money goes through LA art market. There's a New York market that it's a cabal. You know, they'll pick who they're gonna prop up for a year or two, and then they rotate the artists out. It's an interesting situation, but it's also it's comparative to the music industry, and I don't want nothing to do with it. I'm trying to do the indie thing, and I sell direct. I know where it's going. They come back. I've said this before. It's nothing new, but it's just a way to break the algorithm of that shit. And I paint for myself, but I also paint for clients. And so if I paint for myself, there's no dollar sign at the end. Like I got to hurry up and finish to get paid. When I do a commission, I'll take half down up front and then I'll get the balance at the end. But the whole time I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, I got to finish this just to get paid. And it's like, it's a different kind of feeling. And so when I paint for myself, I don't care. I just paint. And then when it's done, you can buy it. Easy. You just walk in and see it and you can take it.
It's your honest expression.
And it's like, there was nobody cracking the whip to finish it quick. Yeah. That piece right there is done at my own leisure, my own ideas. Nobody was telling me what to do. And that's the result. So.
Yeah. Beautiful.
You know, I have nothing against galleries. Like I said, I've said it before too. Like if you see me in a gallery, it's generally a favor or a fundraiser, but I don't want to fucking split my fee or my pay with some guy who just put a nail on a wall and turn the light on.
Yeah, I mean, they take fucking 50% and you sat there slaving for fucking how many hours?
Hours. We're talking almost a year sometimes.
Weeks, yeah.
I'm working on a piece right now that's 12 feet wide by 4.5 tall. It's been 3.5 years.
Oh, you got to send me a picture later.
Not because I want it to be. It's just, if I don't feel it, I don't sit there. So.
You go back to it when you're ready.
I got people right now waiting for this fucking thing to be finished.
Really?
Yeah. They're like, what's up with the painting? What's up with the subway piece? What's up with the subway piece? I'm like, it's right there. I just got things in front of it. I got to get it out of the way.
Can you send me a progress piece?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I love that shit. I love that
and
shit more than anything.
I'm filming a lot more now, my process of shit. So I missed the whole beginning of it, but I'm filming the process to finish.
Sick.
So there will be a final kind of video recap of that. Yeah.
But that's the best shit is like when you're ready to do it, it's real. It's natural. It has life.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas when you're commissioned, it's cool. You're paid for hire, but it's like, I'm doing this because you're telling me to do this type of character, this type of place.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same energy.
Exactly. The end result will show that. I mean, you know, I'll do a great result regardless, but it's not something I would have done.
Yeah.
But it's fun. Like I just did a piece for somebody who wanted a specific piece that I painted in the year 2000 in the Bronx. Can you put that piece on a canvas? I was like, yeah. And it made me go back into that mind and that muscle memory, and it was fun. And it was fun for me. But that's not something I would do for myself. Yeah. But I had a blast doing it. It was great. It's on my Instagram right now. It's like on the top couple rows. But it was a throwback for me, and it put my head in the same space, and it was cool.
Are you talking about that throwback piece that goes back to the single color fill-ins that we're talking about?
Yeah.
To those listening and watching, he did a piece where he painted the base multiple different colors, and then he used, it almost looked like a sander to reveal certain layers of the paint in certain sections. And then you painted this single color orange piece with a dark blue outline, right? It was unbelievable.
I was trying to replicate the spray paint at the time that it did, but the background was on a wall, so I had to do something cool for the background. But what you just said is cool, but it's nothing.
Nah, that shit. When I watched your video on YouTube and I saw that, like,
I did like 25 layers of color.
You revealed layers of paint via a sander. I mean, that's you're paying for quality, and that's what you're getting. No,
that's
bullshit.
me overcompensating for some shit that probably didn't. He would have been happy if it was just a blank background.
If I was that dude, if you're listening, whoever the fuck you are that paid thousands of dollars for that, if you're watching this and you saw that shit is ill, hold that shit like a baby when you sleep.
Yeah, it's a dope piece.
That shit is fire. And that's that angular shit, single color that I was talking. Yeah, that's an homage piece. Yeah. Fire.
And I could have updated it and made it look cooler, but I was like, nah, I'm sticking to that OG blueprint.
Fire. When I saw you bust out that fucking sander, I was like, oh, this is different. That shit is fire.
Yeah, I was playing the hits with that one for sure.
That shit is hard. At a certain point in your life, your work really started to get noticed and you started to get commissioned.
Really?
By
it's news to me.
At least from my observation.
Okay, just joking.
With various companies throughout the years. And you really started to get a star-studded client list.
I work with some cool people, yeah. I'm humble about that. I appreciate that shit.
Yeah, no, dude.
I might not come off as humble, but I'm very thankful in hindsight. I work with some cool companies, some cool people.
Sick companies. Yeah. So how rewarding was that for you to finally get noticed out of all of those years of hard work, out of all those years of grinding and really finding who you were as an artist? How rewarding was that for you at the end to finally start to get this star-studded client list and started to get the ball rolling, so to speak?
It's weird because, like, I don't see it like that. I just see it as, like, cool jobs I did. You know what I mean? And, like, you know, you could say, like, what do they say? The thief of happiness is comparison to other people. Something like that. Some quote like that. So, like, I look at other people, I'm like, damn, they did that crazy Nike shoe or something, or somebody got this with some, I'm like, how the hell did that happen? This guy did a mural for something. So, like, it's easy to look at those things and be like, how the hell did that? But I have to be appreciative of things that I've done. I've done some great things with, like, record companies and shoe companies and clothing brands and, you know, video game companies or whatever. Like, there's cool things I've done. I like to continue to do them, but, like, you just have to take it in the moment and appreciate it and do the right job and just kind of move on. And, like, I've done cool shit that no one's ever seen. Like I told you about the second video game I did with Ecko, Marc. It never got saw. It was a Eminem game for Eminem and Marshall Mathers thing. And we did, like, tons of weekly meetings, and every week I would show up with tons of sketches and character design. And it just never got the traction because of whatever happened behind the scenes when it came to the money.
Wow.
But that game was the follow-up to Marc Ecko's Getting Up.
Which is incredible.
Yeah. And I think he I mean, I don't know exactly, but I think he acquired like an Atari team to work on the game. And then after it was done, they were like, well, what do we do next? Let's do this other thing. And it was a Marshall Mathers Eminem kind of thing. It was like a 2-personality thing. And I worked with this guy, Psycho, and Cat, and all these guys. And it was a cool thing. We were building this backstory and where it would go, the subways in the city. When he walked by a reflection in the window, you saw the other personality. Like, there was tons of shit. And, like, jumping across rooftops. And this was, like, some crazy GTA shit before GTA. But it was basically based on Eminem, and Marshall Mathers was a personality, secondary character. And certain things would cause him to go into another character. And so, and cops would, and if they looked in the reflection, it would be like a pig. It was very, like, it was bugged out. Like, it would have been incredible because we had already done stuff with the Marc Ecko's Getting Up, and I helped him with some of that stuff. This was kind of like, okay, we got our feet wet. Now what do we do with this? And it just never took off. But I've been part of some weird things like that, like some weird shit through the years that, like, just fell on my lap, and I just kind of just did what I would do in those situations.
Since you brought that up, I got to talk about it. Let's go back. You just talked about that Eminem game that never came to be, right? Before that, what caused you going into that game was the game that is, to me, when that game came out, coming from, you know, a suburban town, a person who was a big fan of graffiti from a young age because I had family that grew up in the urban areas. When I saw that there was finally a game that was for graffiti writer fandom. Now, there was one game that came out prior for the Dreamcast called Jet Grind Radio, but that's totally different.
Oh, dude.
It was a rollerblading game with graffiti elements.
That shit was so garbage.
But it wasn't a graffiti game.
Yeah.
This was the first game that catered to people who appreciated graffiti. And I remember buying the collector's edition that came with the book, that came with the marker.
Yeah. And the photo book and everything in the little tin case.
Yes. Yeah. And I was blown away. And the fact that you were a large contributor to that blows my mind. So let's go back slightly. What was that relationship with you and Marc? How was that built on, and what was that experience like creating that game, and what did you create for that game?
Where does that start? Okay, so I worked for Ecko for a couple of years, and I know, and this is not a slight to Marc. I think he knows. I've talked to him about it. I left on bad terms because my manager that came into our department at the time was trying to, like, get good graces with around holiday bonuses. And a lot of us were very upset at this guy's performance, this new manager, because I knew what my value was at the company when I was working for Marc. I was doing incredible stuff. For me, I felt like I was doing some cool shit. I was seeing it walk by me on the street. So I was like, this is finally going through the production, the stores, and it's out in the street. And I know they're making good money off of this. And I saw the change in the salesmen when we would go into meetings from how they would treat me in the beginning to, like, how they'd be like, yo, how you doing? What's going on? You know, I could tell. So I knew what my value was, and then to get a certain type of perception from this manager during bonus time, and another guy who was in a different department was also getting slammed. And he came to me and he said, write on a piece of paper the number that it would take for you to walk to another company. Just pick a number and tell me what it would take for you to walk out this door. And he didn't know that I had a bad situation with this little 6-month review thing. Put a number on a piece of paper. He took it, came back on Monday. He said, we're out of here on Thursday. Give you a week notice. Or we're out of here in a week or whatever. I was like, what? I got that number? He's like, yeah. Well, I can't tell you now, but a whole bunch of us are leaving. And so I came in that next week with my letter of resignation. I gave it to the guy who fucked me over on this review. And his eyes lit up and he got up, ran out. 2 minutes later, my phone rings. He said, Marc's like, yo, what's up? Come to my office. And it broke my heart because, like, Marc was such a good dude. He had his fingers in everything. He was everywhere in that company. The company was so big. He had so much going on, but he was still hands-on in, like, especially dealing with me, a young artist at the time. So I felt bad because it wasn't his fault. Like, Marc really looked out for me. It was this fucking manager dude, this guy that was in my department. That was he was spoiling everything.
Wow.
And I said, listen, Marc, you're a good dude. It's not you. I just can't work in this environment anymore. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm not asking you to fire this guy to make me happy. I said, I just have to go, dude. Like, it's not personal. Like, If you need me for anything, I'm there. Just I can't work with this dude. So I went and worked for this other company. And Mark was upset about it, and he probably maybe doesn't even remember this, but he would every once in a while. I think it was his way of like kind of like saying sorry. He would like call me up to do a job. It would be like some random shit. He'd be like, "Yo, can you do this? These big bronze rhinos. Can you paint these rhinos for me? They're out in Long Island. We'll pick you up." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. All right, there'll be a car outside at 8. I go outside. There'd be like a limo with like a fucking Ewok in the window, and I'm like, "What?" And they would drive me out to Long Island to like some auto body shop where there'd be these big bronze statues, and I'd just paint. And the guy would sit outside waiting for me all day long in the limo with a suit on. And I'm like, "Motherfucker, all you needed to do was give me the money for that for my Christmas bonus, and I would have been happy as fuck." But I feel like they had money to throw around, so he was kind of like giving a little bit of a thank you and trying to help me out. So I did a couple weird things like that, and then the video game came around. The video game was based on a budget that they had to come to, and that meant they could hire voice actors, animation team, whatever, the Atari people, and then there was a budget for the graffiti people. Yeah. So all the graffiti people had an X amount of dollars to pull them in. And Ket was the curator to get to people, because Ket was like the go-to guy, Alan Ket, my homie. And the thing is, I was still a younger artist at the time, graffiti artist. So you had people who were established already that were the faces and characters in the game. But I was a talented guy who could help with the visuals and the stuff in the background. So I did a lot of the stuff for like the different characters in the game, like Train and White Mike and
Train, the main character.
Cuda. There was a couple guys in the game, I forget. So I did a whole bunch of like situational things like tags, throw ups, straight letters, pieces. And then I gave my own stuff, my own pieces for the game. So like you could stumble upon an Ewok piece or whatever. And I don't really remember the game, but I think you had to like hunt down photos to take or something like that. So I have pieces in the game, and I guess it's like you have to search my stuff out and put it in your collection or something like that. So people till to this day will send me screenshots of their TV and they're like taking a picture of an Ewok piece that I did in the Hall of Fame or some shit like that. It's pretty funny.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a fun experience, and yeah,
it was wild. I'll never forget when that game came out. I was like, you got to remember,
it was a game changer for sure.
Yeah. Even if technically speaking, you
and
don't
the music,
think
the soundtrack, and Talib Kweli's voice was the main dude, and like, yo, it was dope. But I wasn't a gamer kid at the time, so like, I was just seeing snippets from other people, and they sent me all this stuff, and I didn't have a Xbox and all this shit. I just had all this paraphernalia that they sent me, and it's still like in boxes somewhere. But
I'll never forget, man, when that game came out, I was just like, because you got to remember, I was like a big fan of graffiti at the time. So
there's a huge fan base of that shit right now.
Oh yeah, huge.
Like online, they're like, there's like a campaign to like get a sequel.
Yeah, there's a petition.
And the thing is, what's sad to me is that they don't bring that game out now, like on PlayStation 5, because there's all these old games that they bring up to speed to play on these new things. I would love for that shit to pop up now.
Yeah,
because it would be cool to play it if you could, but like
all they got to do is remaster it to the up-to-date graphics, and it would be incredible. I remember when that game came out, I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I remember begging my mom, like, get me this fucking game, and I got this collector's edition. It was thick with the metal and the clamshell with the clear plastic overlay, so and I was just like, with the fucking Sharpie marker and the fucking book, I was just like, there's finally a game that speaks to me. You know, and even though if the game was corny, if you're a graffiti writer and you think, I understand where you're coming from. But you got to understand from a fan standpoint, it was like, wow, there's finally a game that it's like, at least there's somebody in those think tanks that is like, I'm making this for you. And that touched my heart.
That just shows you what you can do when you have money. You can throw it around and play with it.
Yeah.
And, Mark had the idea, and he reached out to people to help him see that vision come to life. And so, like, there's that. I can give him his flowers for that. He made a lot of shit happen for a lot of people. And, like, every graffiti writer that was part of that game benefited at a time when they all needed that money. And they all act arrogant, like, well, I was part of that, and I should be in this. But, like, yo, dude, like, he hooked you all up. Like, keep it 100. Like, he hooked you all up. You guys all benefited. You were on the front of magazines.
Yeah,
like he helped a lot of people out, and then they had like a block party, and they painted a train and all this stuff, and So, and then I traveled to like Canada and all this stuff. So like it had money behind it, and it just shows you what you could do if you have budget. You know what I mean? Like what you could do with things.
Yeah. And I really hope one day Marc can somehow bring it back or do a sequel. That petition's out. I signed it. You know, I know the dude that started that Instagram with the getting up to, and Marc took notice of it, reposted it. Nothing came from it, but I really hope that one day maybe I can talk to Marc personally. And
you're in Jersey, man. I could pull a plug. Maybe he'll be in the seat. You know.
Let's go.
He's a good dude.
Let's go.
He's
Bring him by.
He's doing things right now, but yeah, we just had a reunion around the holiday, and you know. He's still the same dude.
Yo, plant a couple seeds for the god. Let him come through.
He's just an older dude, but he's still a big kid, man. He's still a big kid.
I'll get him in SC singing. Come through.
Yeah,
I'll bless him. Pause. So here's one thing that I've been dying to talk to about with you. You have contributed to so much to the culture of hip hop. Like I talked about it briefly earlier, but not only physically with your b-boy stuff and stuff like that, but artistically, you've contributed to the hip hop genre so much musically. You've done basically the track list back artwork for Fun Crusher Plus, which is by Company Flow, which is one of the most important underground hip hop albums in existence. Shout out to LP and Big Just.
I can agree. It's a solid album.
Oh my God. I mean, I'll never forget my first time hearing that. It absolutely took my lid off.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And you know, you've done that, you've done the stuff for other people and stuff. It was one of the, you know, Fun Crusher Plus is one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time. How the fuck did that happen? And if you could walk me through that process and how you got linked to do that project.
So I think, that was like, the painting was in 97. So like, be honest, that was probably one of the first actual paintings that I've ever done. Like I may have dabbled a little bit with paint before that on a canvas, but that was like one of the first like start to finish paintings to me.
This is prior to Gallery Ewok.
Oh, yeah. Gallery Ewok came like 2002, 2003, 2004. And this was,
when did that album come out? 98 or 97?
97.
97.
The painting is 97 because I remember the signature I did in a whiteout pen. I wrote 97.
Wow.
So the backstory of that is I mentioned it before, but TD from Undercover Magazine, my boy Ed Morris, he's from Jersey, he needed content for his next issue. And I said, you need a little bit of a music section. Because there was other things, I think, like Stress Magazine, and there was a couple other magazines that had a little bit of music element to their magazines.
Yeah.
I said, you should do some music review. There's a thing going on in New York. It's this underground hip-hop shit. It's like backpackers. Let me go and interview some dudes that I think are incredible. And it's an opportunity for me to get in front of them, interview them, things that I want to know. And then by that, I'll give it to you. I'll give you all the content. You can put it in your magazine. He's like, dude, go. I'll print whatever you do. So I went under as a Undercover Magazine interviewer but I hadn't known these guys through like the open mic nights and Near Eek and Poa Cafe and all this like the scene in New York, like Wetlands and all this shit.
The legendary shit.
I was seeing around, so. And I knew like Pumpkinhead and Making Records and all these dudes at the time. So I kind of was like, yo, can I come check you guys at the studio and interview you for this magazine Undercover? It's a graph mag, but they want to do music. He's like, yeah, come by. So they had a studio that they were doing stuff down in the financial district, down by like Ground Zero, World Trade Center area. And so I went down there one night, and their studio, it had like a Phase 2 piece in there, I told you. And they're recording that album. And I'm asking them questions. And I think I have a recording of this interview somewhere on a cassette tape.
Really?
Yeah, because I recorded it.
I need that.
Yeah, I gotta fucking get a cassette tape.
Load that up.
And in the process, Big Just was a TNS Loon 10. He wrote Loon TNS.
Loon TNS. That's my favorite track on that album.
Yeah,
bro.
So he was the Graffiti Connect, and he knew friends that I knew. So I was connected to him on a graph level where I wasn't to LP and Mr. Len. But they were dope. They were still cool dudes.
Fact.
I was interested in LP's background because I think his dad was a jazz musician, and Len was the DJ and whatnot. So I was asking them specific stuff, but through the mix, I just ended up doing I said, yo, do you need artwork? And they're like, yeah, we need a cover for this album that they're recording. And so I was like, I got you. Let's go. And so they, without the record label knowing, they told me to do a painting for them. I was a big fan, so I was off to the races. Without me knowing, without them knowing, I think it was Jared at Raucous had promised, there was another artist that was doing their other album covers. He was a painter, a really dope dude. I think they promised, as a record company, they promised him, you have the cover of whatever we release next. He wasn't attached to the Company Flow project, but he was attached to the next release project, whatever it was. It could have been El Fudge, or it could have been anybody on their roster. Whoever the next album came up, he was promised that job. So meanwhile, I'm spending a month doing this painting, and then this guy did a painting in like 2 nights for the front.
Wow.
And I'm thinking I'm dropping the painting off to get scanned at Raucous, and it ended up becoming the back because they promised this other guy. He was
Matt Do Reed, right?
Yeah. Matt Do. Rest in peace
Rest
to him.
in peace, yeah.
For sure. Incredible. I'm not taking nothing away from him. I'm just telling you the history here.
He did the fucking
A lot of
Organized,
stuff.
Confused, and Stress cover.
Yeah.
Fire, dude.
When he went in. But,
Facts.
But when I saw him do like this quick stuff, like he did the front was very fast, I kind of felt like he could have spent more time on it. But when he went in, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Like his portraits were dope. And he was, as far as painting ability with a brush, he was light years ahead of me. But I felt like I brought it with the back. But I was still happy to be part of the project, don't get me wrong. Because back then it was like 12 inches and CD fold-outs. So they used it in the inserts. I wasn't mad at that. I was just hyped to be part of the project. But I was a little disappointed it wasn't actually the front.
Yeah, I know.
But, I mean, let's be honest. It's part of history. I'm not mad at it. It is
Also,
what it is. Yeah.
let's be honest. Very rare does an artist have one piece and not the other. Usually, the main artist does the front and the back. So it's pretty honorable that you got a piece of that history.
And then, he passed away, and so it's a little bit of a sad story. But but as far as they're concerned, it's cool because they have a piece of that part of it now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? His legacy is a small window, and they're part of that legacy. So, and I had friends who were friends with him. I don't think I ever met him, but, we knew of each other through the thing at the time. And and Pharaoh Monch speaks highly of him, and like some of my friends really speak highly of him. I just, in hindsight, I wish I had paid more attention to him because I would have liked to have reached out to him and found out who he was prior to this ending of it all. But, it's just history, dude. And I did stuff for Raucous that never came out. I did stuff for Pharaoh Monch. I did stuff for High Tech.
Really?
What else? I did some sound bombing stuff. I told you they gave me the credit card, and I went to Pearl Paint and bought like I took their credit card.
Those pictures are great.
Yeah,
dude.
I went to Pearl. I racked up on like thousands of dollars of paint, and then they fucking just folded up shop.
Yo, do you still have the artwork for High Tech that you never
It's
released?
black and white. Yeah, I have it. Yeah.
Can
I have the High Tech stuff. I have the Pharaoh stuff.
Can I buy it?
You can buy it.
Yeah.
It's in like my portfolio from like the 90s, dude. I'll send you shit.
That stuff to me means the most.
I have Raucous logos that were like crazy that no one's ever seen.
Come on, let's work something out.
I've done a lot of stuff that they saw, but they were like picking things. And
let's work something out.
Yeah.
I'm not rich, but we'll work something out.
I'll send you a little video of me like flipping the pages.
Let's go.
And you'll be bugging out. Yeah.
Let's go. I need that on my wall, man. I'll show you some shit that I have on my wall.
We'll talk.
Facts. Yeah, let's get it. Damn, that blows my mind though.
But I was a big fan of that music and the era, and it's something that was very special to me. So, I mean, there was so much incredible stuff at the time, man.
Yeah.
So much incredible stuff that was going on right there.
I know. I mean, I sent you the other day a picture of, I have a sealed Funk Crusher Plus LP sealed.
That's crazy.
I'm never opening that.
That's crazy.
Never.
Yeah.
I have the, remember when they dropped the EP prior?
Yeah.
I have the official record. I have the clear one. I don't have the rarer black one.
Yeah.
I have the clear double LP.
That's dope.
Yeah, I don't fuck around.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of cool stickers at the time and shit. And I did stuff for Pumpkinhead. He wasn't on Raucous, but he was doing cool stuff.
Rest in peace, man.
Yeah, Pumpkinhead was dope, dude. So, yeah, I shot a music video with them for one of his songs down in the Dead Tracks in Brooklyn.
Wow.
I dragged their whole production team and cameras down there. Yeah.
That's
cool.
crazy.
Very good times, man. Good times.
That's crazy. Yeah. Yo, I'm a big fan of hip hop. Not only that, I'm a big fan of Yakk Ballz. And, huge.
Okay.
At least vintage Yakk Ballz.
Yeah. He was good.
A lot of pause-worthy words there. If anyone who knows Yakk Ballz, they are no stranger to your artwork.
Okay.
You know, since you did the artwork not only for the Freak Show 12-inch that was released on Def Jugs, if I'm correct.
It's funny because you're naming these album names. I don't remember the names. I just remember the artwork and certain songs.
Yeah. I'm salty about the Freak Show 12-inch because I contacted you a couple weeks ago and you revealed, like you said earlier, that you sold to somebody else. But the Siphontology mixtape 1 and mixtape 2, you did both of the artworks.
Those are fun. Those are fun. Yeah.
Yeah. The first one's my favorite. I might have to talk to you about that one. I need that
the yellow one or the red one?
The yellow's my favorite.
Yeah, okay. They're all on a line. So, something like that. Yeah.
The yellow one has more character to it, has more colors. Even the text has more fill-in. Whereas the red one kind of seemed to me like it was kind of rushed.
It was a square image. The other one was for the fold out.
Yeah.
So it was a front and then a delivery image on the back. It was based on, I think it was a religion as a scam. Give me your money, and then they leave you with like a wheelchair and you're on the ground. I think that's what it was. Because it was like a guy in a mask looking all proper, but behind it was a devil, like evil. And it was like, give me your money, I got a Bible, but
that makes sense.
And then the back, and there was a guy on a wheelchair, like offering all his money.
That makes sense.
And then the punchline was like the guy on the ground. He's like pockets are turned down. He's got like, they stole his wheelchair. He's broken. He's like, what happened? I think that's what it was sort of like.
The yellow one's my favorite one.
Yeah.
I know you said you still have it. We're gonna have to negotiate on that one. I need that one for my wall. How did that fucking happen? Because Yakk Ballz, to me and my cousin are big fans of Yakk Ballz, and I'm personally friends with Mondi. Shout out DJ Mondi.
Yeah,
I released the unreleased, a beat tape of his and all that.
Okay.
I love Yakk. And me and my cousin always said if Yakk Ballz had a more commercial name, he would have blown. Because the name Yakk Ballz at the time, it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I never knew what the fuck it meant. Yeah.
Neither did I. It didn't make any sense. Yeah. But now you got names like Action Bronson and all these weird names. Like it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
He came out. Yeah. He came out in the wrong time. So how did that situation happen with you and Yakk?
He was affiliated with my homies, this TCK crew. Shout out to Vaz and all these
True
dudes.
City, Killers,
Bazaar, and all these dudes. So TCK was the squad, man. Vaz worked at Barbados Footwork, and we would taking the team down to fucking Nuyorican and all this shit.
Yeah,
it was a squad. TCK was a squad. Connected to CM Mob, and it was a little squad. 5MA, TCK, 2DX. This was our squad, and
2DX hard.
Yeah, and so Yakk was friends with the Queens kids, and so I met him through Vaz and all these dudes. He was coming up as an artist that needed visuals and graphics, and I was already working for this a West Coast clothing company, and so this company was asking me to like network with like rappers that I knew in New York to do product shots and like flow gear, give gear to people. And I had a big connection of different rappers. Like I did M1 from Dead Prez. I did LP Company Flow. I shot Master Ace. I did OC. Was it OC organized? I did some.
Time's up.
Yeah, I did different rappers for this company, but I was doing album covers for certain people at the time too. I did stuff for like making records for Pumpkinhead and I can't think of these other guys that came and went. But I think I hooked up Yakk with some graphics for albums, and I did some photo shoots for him. I think we ran around the city and did photos with him, and it kind of overlapped with this clothing brand that I was working with because we were trying to keep it all kind of like in the family and shit. And then it turned into album covers, and then like he would go on tour with Def Jux, and they needed merch. And it was like the big thing at the time was like, you're an independent artist, but you need merch to sell at these shows. So I was like, yeah, I'll give you like graphics to do tees and with and shit like that. So I think it left a bitter taste in my mouth at the end because I ended up giving him a graphic. It was a really dope shirt, and he was going to recoup the money and pay me later, and he never paid me.
Wow.
And so I broke ties with the clothing brand over some personal shit, and I cut him because he never paid me for this last graphic. And so I was really fed up with what was going on at the time. And to this day, these two have never come back to me and apologized or explained to me what their intentions were to fuck me over. Because if I promise somebody something and I'm in a bad place where I can't do it and I feel embarrassed about it, it would be a priority for me to come back a year later and be like, listen, you're my man. I know I said I was going to do something, but I couldn't. But here I am now. Let's make this right.
Yeah.
and here's a little extra. This is how I would do it, and I wouldn't expect others to do what I would do. I mean, we're talking like 20 years now, and I haven't heard from any of these dudes.
Wow.
So it just shows a little bit of character of who's who. But I'm thankful for them showing me who they were, because now I'm better off. You know.
Come on, Yasha. What the fuck, man?
It is what it is. I have no ill will towards people, but like I gave a lot in my 20s to friends who I thought were looking out. And it was a time when I easily could have went and got some big corporate gig at another company, and I could have got like paid heavily. Yeah. But I was trying to be a team player and something I believed in. And when it finally came down to people getting paid for certain things, I kind of got left out. So it was a life lesson in certain ways. Yeah. You know, so it was all experience, man. We go through life with experiences, and I'm not jaded about that, but you know, if you ask me, I'll tell you.
Well, at least
I'm not
you did it.
using a platform to talk shit about people, but if you ask me, I'll
of course.
tell you. Yeah. So like, it's a bittersweet thing, because I love the dude's music. I love doing the work. The best. But it ended up being a little bit of a salty ending.
You know, it is what it is. Yeah. But I love that those Siphontology mixtape covers are the best to me. I need those. Since the fucking free show left me.
So yeah, I'll sell you the originals. Then I'll get my money's worth at the end.
The ink joints. The ink joints. Who else have you worked with in hip hop, in the hip hop space rather? When it comes to commissioned art and whatever.
Let me think. I mean, like I said, I did at the time when I was in Raucous in the offices, just hanging around. I was doing stuff. I did some stuff for Pharaoh Monch that never got used. I did stuff for High Tech that never got used. I did stuff for Raucous. I designed a lot of murals that never got painted because they were throwing money around at the time because they had a little bit of a marketing budget. And I did a lot of cool stuff on paper, but it just took a long time to get things realized. And so by the time things were kind of being fleshed out, their company was already getting shut down. So for people who don't know the backstory of Raucous, it was two guys, Jared and I think his name was like Blake or something like that. Or it was two guys, but they had like financial backing from Rupert Murdoch's son, James Murdoch, I think. Okay. So it was kind of like, I don't want to say a vanity project because I don't really know, but it was the fire burned quick and it was out quick. And it was sad because it really was it was something very important for a lot of people like Mos Def, Talib Kweli, Common Sense. Yeah. I mean, like I said, Kanye was in there as a little fucking noob with polo and a backpack trying to get put on by High Tech. And like, there was a lot of people in there that every time I go in there would be people hanging out. Like Evil D was telling me all this stuff about how he got first paid for Black Moon stuff, and it got paid in a bag of cash, brown bag. And never seen that much money in his hand. And he was like, holy shit. But there was this dude who was kind of like a security dude named Headquarters. Rest in peace, the Headquarters. He was like Raucous's, you know, he drove a truck. If you needed to go to another studio, he'd drive you over. He was like a big hood dude that was friends with like Guru and Gangstar. So like, for whatever reason, I hit it off with this dude, Headquarters. We're two different worlds. I was like some goofy fucking graffiti white kid from upstate, and this dude was like certified hood dude, security guard for Raucous. But I'd be up there hanging out, and he's like, yo, what are you doing? Let's go get some food. And before you know it, we're like hanging out in D&D studios with like Guru, watching Cops on TV, and we're all eating Chinese food. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm in the middle of D&D studios laughing with Guru and like catching tags in the staircase on the way out. And
Rest in peace.
But this dude, Headquarters, was just cool with everybody. And it was just a weird time, man. It's just like a dream when I think back at this shit. But it had such a small window, and it just like burned bright and then just burned out. But a lot of people got their jump off. Mos Def, Talib Kweli. A lot of people around all them cats. A lot of people came out of Raucous, man. It was a cool era. It was a really cool
Raucous
era.
Was the best. I have a Raucous, like I told you, Sound Bomb and Volume 3 LRG jacket. Yeah. I still have it.
That's crazy. Mint. They used to bring me into the merch area, and they'd be like, yo, take what you want. I get shirts, bags. Wow. I would just pull shit, man. So, yeah.
That's bananas.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
Yo, in 2014, you started a very interesting project called the Gimme Project. Which
no, 2007.
Oh, it wasn't 4?
No, wait. 2000. No, because we just had the 20-year anniversary. 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, right? You're right. Yeah.
I mean, you're decked out in it right now. Years. Present day gear, but you're decked out in it right now. I know it very well, but for the listeners, Can you describe the whole project for us in its infancy stages leading up to post hiatus, because you took a break for a while, and where it is now?
So it started as a joke. It was a project. Like I said, it was just a side project. I think the Gimme concept, the Gimme project, was like sick of sitting around and expecting things that you think you may have earned. It's about going out and just taking what you going and getting what you want, right? Yeah. It's a concept. It's a concept of like, I'm not waiting around, I'm going to get what I want. Just forcefully, authoritatively going and taking what you want. So the Gimme project was a side gig. It was like we were doing trade shows and we had clientele across the states for our clothing brand, but we started to know these people. They would come to all the trade shows every time, and they were like, who's the artist? That's the artist right there. I'm sitting there, but I'm not a salesman. I'm just hanging out the booth. Magic shows in Vegas. And they were like, his stuff is really cool. Like, how come he doesn't do shirts? And so we're like, yeah, how come I don't do shirts? I'm doing shirts for this company. Yeah. You're paying for the booth, but like, let's have some fun. Let's fucking do some crazy shit. We had a crazy shirt printer in LA that did like 14 color prints. Wow. Which was a big deal. Plastisol, toxic Plastisol shirts.
That's a huge deal.
So we had this guy that was willing to do like what I would consider at the time like pieces of art on a shirt. And so we tested it out. We did like a shirt that had like just crazy shit on a shirt, and we put it on a hook and a hanger in the back corner. And when these people came around, they're like, this is our line, this is what we're selling. But yo, you got a cool skate shop in Illinois somewhere or whatever, like you should check out this thing. It's our little side project, the Gimme project. And it was just a way for me to kind of like just fuck around and just make a little side bucks here and there and kind of like just be in the mix as an art thing. And the next time we did 2 shirts, and the next time we didn't do any shirts, we just spray paint a shirt gold and put it on a hanger and be like, and they'd be like, where's the Gimme stuff? We're like, oh, that's it right there. But you can't afford that. See you next time. Wow. It'd be this like spray painted gold. It'd be like solid, dried, crusty. And they'd be like, what? And we're like, no, don't worry about it. They're like, what do you mean? And we're like, nothing. And we would just confuse people and have jokes, and we'd be laughing. And it would be just a gold shirt on a gold hanger. We were just joking around, having fun. But it started to like catch on like blogs, and like certain companies like Digital Underground were picking it up, and it was in magazines and shit. And then our screen printer burned to the ground in LA. It just burned down. So we were like, all right, party's over. And then it just wrapped up. And then years later, I would just kind of feed it a little bit because people would ask about it. So I would just drop a shirt here, drop a shirt there, do a toy, and I would just put the Gimme logo on the toy. So it was kind of like a crossover. It was just a fun thing. But it's back, and it's like, you know, there's 2 sides to the line. There's the heritage line that's sort of emblematic of what it used to look like crazy pieces of art on a shirt. That's my heritage side. And then there's like more graphical, clean-cut logo stuff that I wear today maybe as an adult. I would wear it now. So I'm trying to hit 2 audiences with like guys who came up with it, like our age group. Like, we don't want to wear big graphics all the time. Yeah. But there's cats that want that shit. And there is adults from our age group that are like, yo, what's up with that crazy shit? I'm like, I got it. Got that right here. But I want to wear simpler shit, more treatment, logo, design element stuff. Hidden shit, like designs, like stuff in the pockets that no one sees but the person wearing it. You know what I'm saying? So that's my take on it now. I'm trying to have 2 versions, same company, same umbrella.
Sick.
Just a variety of options. It's more of a lifestyle thing. Like, I do different stuff. That's just, you know, it feels to me like there's companies in Japan that do this. So I'm like, damn, that's what I want to do with my shit. What these brands might be doing in Japan. And I see this stuff in Japan. So,
Japan's the best, bro.
Yeah, and the quality and the taste level is so incredible. So I want to just do that here, and it's just kind of like a side project. But it's fun for me, man. It keeps me busy, and you know, I'm no stranger to this industry. It's a different animal now, but it's still fun to do.
That's dope.
So check out the GimmeProject.com.
The Gimme
Project.
I have a random question for you. How much did COVID fuck up the graph game in NY?
I don't know if it fucked it up because these dudes went on tear and like had a field day for about a year, just going nuts. But you know, I don't know. COVID fucked everything up for everything, not just graffiti, but like it just messed up a lot of industry. Right? Yeah, money. It fucked a lot of people's money up. Like, so, but cops weren't arresting people. People were out going crazy, crushing shit that wouldn't have painted prior to that. So it wasn't really like it wasn't fucking it up. It was allowing people to get over. That's
what I'm referring to. Like, how much did it make everything chaotic?
It was layers. It was insane. Like, it just looked crazy. It looked crazy. It looked like just layers of fucking graph. But then when it got shut down, people were like, all right, party's over.
Wow.
Those dudes just disappeared.
That's insane.
It was fun. It was fun to watch, but it was a little silly. You know?
Yeah. You're really big into MMA and jiu-jitsu, right?
Mostly jiu-jitsu.
As a whole.
Yeah. MMA it's a different animal.
Yeah.
I like when the MMA guys are doing jiu-jitsu, but I'm not really too much into just sweaty people.
So you're specific into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
When did your love for martial arts start? And since you were a breaker, do you think that being a b-boy helped your MMA game as far as like flexibility and stamina?
Sure, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, as a b-boy, you're comfortable on the ground. Your coordination, your equilibrium, your balance, your agility, it all came from b-boy. So b-boying, I transitioned out of b-boying because my whole crew, Skill Methods, shout out to Skill Methods, they all kind of moved to LA for like business and industry work. I stayed in New York because this is just where I was at. I didn't go to LA to do dance work. They were killing the game, going on tour with like Madonna and fucking So doing movies and shit. I got into jiu-jitsu in 2012. Yeah, around that time I got into jiu-jitsu. I just fell in love with it because it's a different type of muscle stuff, man. I can't really compare it to anything. It was just something new. I found it from scratch. I watched MMA and I was like, I'd watch these fucking fighters and every once in a while, one of them clearly would take a dude down and do some shit and the fight was over. I was like, well, what the fuck was that? They just rolled one way, rolled the other way, and the guy just was screaming, stop. I was like, whoa, this is something going on I don't understand. Now I see it's like heel hooks, leg locks, straight ankle, all this stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? I was intrigued by it. So in 2012, I jumped on the mats, Birdman, and it's just been another addition. I kind of traded it out for b-boying into that. My energy went into that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let me ask you something. What's your opinion on the current state of jiu-jitsu? And what's your opinion on Gordon Ryan?
I was curious. It's funny you bring this up. All right, so because you were about to say what's your current opinion about it?
Because since you have quite the political voice on social media,
you're asking amazing questions that no one's going to know about.
Which greatly differs from his opinion on it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to go into politics with Gordon because that's a whole nother thing.
I hate that motherfucker. Let me tell you that.
It's easy to hate that motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm good.
So
I'm good.
His jiu-jitsu is incredible. Okay, he's got the stature, the physique, the body size.
Via steroids.
I'm getting to that. So there's two schools of thoughts: clean and steroids. God damn, dude, why you gotta ask me this shit? All right, so Gordon is under Danaher, and there's a whole team of guys under John Danaher, who's another Henzo black belt in the city. Danaher, I think, is from New Zealand or something like that. So my teacher came up with Danaher at the old Henzo school under the methadone clinic. It's an old school Matt Serra. All these dudes came from this certain squad of jiu-jitsu.
Shout out Matt Serra. Love it, bro.
So anyway, Danaher's a very obsessive OCD, really like how I am with graffiti. That's Danaher about jiu-jitsu. So to have that dude as a teacher, you're chilling. So Gordon Ryan is this big, I think he's a wrestler maybe he comes from wrestling, I'm not exactly sure. He basically just studied under Danaher, but came up in a perfect time under the MMA world. I think he was aiming towards MMA, but he's already sweeped all the tournaments in jiu-jitsu, all this stuff like
he's considered the GOAT.
Yeah, it's a tough one to fucking argue. He kind of comes off a little arrogant, but he's fucking incredible. And I don't think he's arrogant. I just think he's very confident in how he is.
He's phenomenal.
And it comes off arrogant, but he's confident in what he's accomplished. Can't take that away from the dude. But, you know, he's openly embraced like steroid use and stuff like that. And I mean, my school of thought and what my teachers taught me, and the reason why I appreciate my teachers because he's a little guy. So here's the thing about jiu-jitsu schools. If you walk into a jiu-jitsu school and the teacher's a big dude, walk out because that's not good jiu-jitsu.
Really?
Because jiu-jitsu is about technique and leverage and speed and all that. It's not about muscle.
size.
Yeah. And so the classic thing is if you see a small teacher in jiu-jitsu, that dude's jiu-jitsu is incredible because he's not relying on strength. You follow what I'm saying?
Totally.
So my teacher's not a small guy, but he's not a big dude. So his technique is literally incredible. He's like another version of Danaher, but in a different way. Birdman is a very incredible dude. His leg staples and his concepts, and it works for his body. You should learn all the techniques, but you should also focus on what your body's strengths are. Like we have different styles and stuff like that for different body strengths, but Birdman's style and approach is incredible. So like everything that he's taught, if you can jump into what he's saying and absorb that shit, you're off to the races. But like, so Gordon Ryan has the best of all worlds. He's not only the perfect physical specimen, but his teacher is one of the best teachers in the world.
Wow.
And so like I'll go to these tournaments where it's chaos. The audience is going nuts. You got two people competing and their coaches are on the side and everyone's screaming, go for the leg, right arm, elbow, rah, 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 going crazy. And it's just chaos. And on the one side, Danaher's going left arm, right foot, left, right, elbow, neck. And like, you're like, what the fuck's going on?
Hyper specific.
Super quiet. And like, you're tuned out to this chaos. You're listening to that dude's voice. And he's saying the right shit in a moment of chaos. And I've seen these tournaments, like, it's nuts.
Wow.
But Gordon Ryan and these dudes, they have formulas. Like, you could look up Danaher's jiu-jitsu stuff on YouTube. And any lesson, I don't care if he picks mount, rear naked chokes, heel hooks, whatever technique he's specifically talking about, you're going to walk away from that and go, holy shit, I never looked at it like that before.
Wow.
And so it's people like that made me want to write this book I was telling you about, because I was like, no one's doing that in graffiti.
Wow.
And I see it in the jiu-jitsu world, and I see what it does for the community of jiu-jitsu. When the community of jiu-jitsu appreciate it, everybody grows. So I'm at a point where I want to kind of give back to what I know, not trying to hoard it and secret it and keep it in the vaults. I'm trying to allow it to be out there, because if I'm gone tomorrow, at least it's out there. But it's because of guys like Danaher, Birdman, stuff that Henzo's taught at seminars, Marcelo Garcia, the way he approaches stuff. There's certain people in jiu-jitsu that are so specific and genius at what they do, and they give it away. And it's like everybody, the tides rise.
Wow.
And I look in graffiti, and I just see a lot of people fumbling around in the dark. I'm like, I got to help. I got to give out what I know.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, it came from the enlightenment of what I saw in graffiti or jiu-jitsu. But yeah, Gordon Ryan's incredible dude, but it would be two different people on and off steroids as far as physique, but the technique, you can't take away from the technique.
Of course.
Yeah, and his brother, he's a younger brother, and there's other people in that squad. I think during COVID, the squad kind of broke apart, but they had a team that was incredible.
Wow.
And my boy John Bush, shout out to John Bush, he was training over there during COVID, and they were just like, I was off the mats during COVID. I was like, I don't want to be in people's faces breathing.
Yeah.
They were at Henzo's, like, training through COVID. Dudes were all getting COVID, spreading through. They were making patches for COVID, and if you got COVID, you got a patch. Like, it was crazy. I didn't go back till, like, everybody was, like, shots and shit, and everybody was cool.
Yeah.
It was scary. I was wearing a mask and shit. I was like, I don't want to be breathing all this stuff.
Yeah.
COVID shut down jiu-jitsu for me.
Oh, yeah?
I came back like 10 pounds overweight, had to work it off. Yeah, it was bad.
One person that I love a lot, and me personally, I'm an MMA fan. I love watching
it. I'm just not, don't get me wrong, I'm not against MMA. I just love the jiu-jitsu side of it. Okay. I love when a fighter like Jim Miller or anybody who's a jiu-jitsu / MMA fighter, I want to see the jiu-jitsu side. I want to see dudes who's scared that you might go toe-to-toe with the hands, but when that dude takes you down, you're in deep water and you're fucked. Yeah. I like that fear of when that takedown comes, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like I like watching fighting because I know you're a boxing fan.
And UFC heavy.
Yeah. So but the UFC sort of turned into a little bit of a wrestling. It just feels too silly these days.
Yeah. But I love it. But there's one person when it comes to jiu-jitsu now. I don't know personally a lot about jiu-jitsu, but I admire it.
Ask me anything, man. I'm a fucking
I admire the mindset of it. I admire the dedication of it. And there's two spectrums. There's two goats to me, as far as my observation. You got Gordon Ryan, who is considered the GOAT, but he's a heavy steroid user. And then you got Mikey Musumeci.
I don't know who that is.
Really?
MMA or jiu-jitsu?
No, strictly jiu-jitsu.
From where? Who's the school? Where's he from?
I'm going to put you on.
Or maybe I'm just not knowing the way your name is.
He's a young kid.
Yeah.
He's from New Jersey.
Okay.
But he was over at One. You know, you familiar with One?
Nah.
Really?
Yeah. So there's
we got to have a conversation off camera.
Gary Tonin?
I'm not familiar with that name.
I think he's like New Brunswick. But
Forgive my ignorance.
So he's also from the Jersey side. The guys in Jersey would drive into New York.
Okay.
I know of Gary Tonin from Jersey and the Ryan brothers and shit like that. But no, I'm not familiar with who you're talking about.
So Mikey Musumeci, if you look at him, he was on Rogan a couple times.
Oh shit! So he probably is.
He's legit.
They brought him on just for his jiu-jitsu?
Yes.
Okay, so he definitely is.
He's legit.
Yeah.
Now he's a young kid. He's from New Jersey originally.
Yeah.
But he's considered one of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners of all time.
Wait, that's not the guy
that... He does not use steroids.
Okay, so wait, is this the guy that was arguing with Gordon? He's a smaller guy?
Yeah.
Okay, I know who you're talking about.
He's a skinny young kid.
Yes.
Curly, tight hair.
Yes.
Looks like he has a permanent black eye.
Yeah, my apologies for any jiu-jitsu dudes. I'm just not following this stuff these days, but I know who you're talking about. They had a little bout.
Yeah, you're an old head.
They know each other. Yeah.
And the whole thing is like...
What happened with that? I don't know what the update with that was.
Neither do I, but I know Mikey Musumeci is totally against steroids.
Gary was... Gordon Ryan was saying Mikey. It makes sense. I didn't know the last name.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So you got Gordon, who's for steroids, and then you got Mikey Musumeci, who is totally against them.
And then they're taking punches at each other's personalities and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So that guy, I remember seeing him and watching him, and he just mows through people, just like Gordon does.
So here's the thing: there's jiu-jitsu, and then there's like black belt, and then there's like
elite,
black belt, elite. Yeah.
Elite.
So and like you'll see the talent in the lower belts. You'll see a room of purple belts, and you'll see one purple belt who's clearly just playing around. Yeah. You'll see brown belts all through the room, and you'll see one brown belt that's just playing around.
Yeah.
And then there's a beauty of like anybody who comes in the mats that are both have full energy, they'll have a great role, training against each other. But something happens when you're exhausted and you're 2 classes in, and some dude comes in fresh, and I've been in there for 2 hours and I'm exhausted, and I'm not using any energy. And I'm literally just fending this shit off. And like, it's just like a punch and you're just like, nah. And a punch and just like, nah.
Yeah.
And it just becomes effortless. It's weird. It's like this weird zone you get in when you're exhausted and you're not using any energy and you're timing things. And it's just like this thing happens where it doesn't matter how fresh and energetic they are coming on off the street. And I've been there for 2 hours. They just can't hang. And that's when you know there's a technique element that has nothing to do with muscle. And I've rolled against big motherfuckers that if you and me walked by and seen them on the street, you'd be like, that dude's a fucking monster. I don't ever want to see that dude in a bar fight.
Wow.
I have had these dudes gasping for air, dripping all over the place, 5 minutes of fury, and I'm using that shit against them.
I'm sure.
And so when you start to see that shit happen, I don't give a fuck about anybody's loud mouth in the street. All this tough guy shit doesn't mean anything. Because all I got to do is get on your back, and you're panicking, dude. That's it.
That's it.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And there's a distance control, and I'm not allowing you to get the distance you need. So, like, let's say you're really good with your hands. I'm not going to let you use it. You're not going to box me, dude.
Yeah.
I have to understand where we're at in the situation. Every situation, you might be a wrestler. I'm not going to let you shoot on me. If I know your strengths, I'm not going to let you use those strengths. That's part 1. And then it's part 2 is like the actual confrontation of what's happening when you're doing things. You may want to play passive and allow them to be aggressive where you're setting traps. And then sometimes I may be a little upset because this dude's a dick. I'm going to be the aggressor, and I'm not going to let him defend my shit. It just depends on what you're doing that day. My old jiu-jitsu game was very aggressive. I cut through everybody's guards and did all the things. I would dictate the pace. I would dictate what I wanted to do. Then I got some shoulder injuries, and I had to play a whole year of defense because my aggressive game was fucked up. And so...
Because of your injury.
I had a very strong purple belt aggressive game, but I had to adjust. And it's a blessing because now I have a very dangerous defense game, where I can allow people who overconfidently, aggressively come at me, and I'm literally setting traps and letting you fall into a hole, and it's game over. So I didn't have that until I had injuries.
Similar to Mayweather when he fucked up his hands.
I don't know the backstory of that.
Oh, okay.
But it sounds similar. So like in my purple belt years, I had 3 huge motherfuckers that I was partnering with all the time. I was the smallest of all these 3 dudes. And so arm bars didn't work. A lot of the shit that I came up from white belt to blue belt to purple belt that should work on people did not work on these huge monsters. One dude was a giant softball player.
Wow.
I had to change my game to those 3 dudes because everything that I had been taught up to that point didn't work on their body type. So it immediately turned into neck chokes, back takes, arm drags, leg drags, and my mount, which would normally work on a smaller person, didn't work on these bigger dudes. I had to do mount like a modified mount that where my weight would keep them, and I'd have to crawl out to the arm to go straight for the elbow or the wrist lock, to where my body was pinning the rest of them. Wow. It wasn't a normal mount; it was a different type of mount, and the attacks were different because I would be on the top of dudes, and they would literally panic and bench press me in midair. And I'd be in the air flailing. I'm looking at my teacher like, yo, what the fuck is this? And they're laughing. He's laughing at me. When you're in certain situations with body types, you have to adjust your game to that body type.
Of course,
everything's going to work.
Sense.
Yeah, it's not going to work. The typical shit's not going to work. You have to understand where your situation you're in, distance control, stuff like that.
There's levels to that shit.
Yeah, and then there's levels beyond that I'm telling you about. Like Gordon Ryan, there's levels, and there's Marcelo levels. Yeah. There's levels beyond black belt. They say you get your black belt, and then there's 10 years behind that.
Insane.
Which is a whole nother level. So, like, there's a big goal to get your black belt. Everyone wants to get the black belt.
One of my boys just got one.
Yeah. From New Jersey?
Yeah. His name's Cameron.
That's cool.
He just got one.
So that's a big thing. They say, like, 1% gets the black belt.
Wow.
And so people who are high-level black belts, whole nother game.
Cameron DeMarco. I'll show you him later.
Yeah. That's cool. Send me stuff. Yeah, send me stuff.
Killer Cam. Wow, that's crazy. So to segue off of that's a whole other podcast.
I love it, man.
Itself.
You can talk about that shit for hours.
So do I.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of it. I'm not as knowledgeable of it, but I appreciate it.
Me too, man. I love it. I was obsessive about it for like, I don't know, 13 years or some shit like that.
It's amazing, man. So one thing that I really want to talk about before we exit is you wrote a book that technically, for the most part, is finished already. And it's called I Was Here.
Yeah.
Coming out hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, who knows?
Can you explain what the book entails, what sparked the initial idea to write the book, and how long you've been working on it thus far? Because it's an interesting concept to me.
Yeah, it's a different thing. Let's see. I used to write a lot. I'm not a writer, but I used to like take the train a lot, and I would just write things in my head that would come to my head. I would be in sketchbooks, like I'd either draw or write. So I would always write like a couple pages of like chicken scratch in the train and just close it and never look back at it. During COVID, I started pulling out these sketchbooks, ripping out like groups of paper of like 5-6 pages of a topic. And I would put a paper clip on it and put it in a pile. And then I would just rip through all these books and just kind of like decipher what I was talking about, because a lot of it was like chicken scratch. And I was like, what am I talking about? And I'm like, oh my God, I remember this. I got to flesh this out. So then I turned that into Word documents and then edited it, broke it into chapters, saw the holes of what I wanted to talk about that I didn't talk about, fleshed out things I did talk about, and I have images to tie back to that stuff. But the book primarily to me is technique, formula, approach, comfort, breaking bad habits, recognizing bad habits, folding letters, light source, color theory. There's stories in there that are like this is not a book about like history of graffiti, but there's stories in there, and I talk about importance of certain things that were injected in the New York City graffiti scene, specifically art and design high school, and the teachers that taught at that time gave these kids lessons that they applied to the subway trains. So I went to certain people and was like, well, what were they teaching you at that fucking high school that benefited the graffiti world as a whole? There's a whole community of New York City graffiti writers that came from art and design. And so I went to some of those guys, and then I talk about how did kids from the hood learn 3D? You know, that's on the Sauce Talk logo, the black shadow behind it. That's like stuff that they picked up from.
Yeah, the simplistic drop shadow or whatever.
They picked this stuff up from like Rolling Stone magazine, cereal boxes, dishwasher logos, comic book titles. Like, these are things that I wanted to go to those people and say, what did you see that taught you how to do a 3D correctly? Which graffiti does incorrectly. There's a parallel 3D we do, where we kick the 3D to the right or to the left, and it's literally parallel. There's no vanishing point. Technically, a parallel 3D is incorrect, but we do that traditionally for generations incorrectly. So I wanted to know, why is that getting passed on through us to do a parallel 3D? Because every 3 dimension has a vanishing point. You pick it and you go with it. We do a parallel 3D that has no vanishing point. That's technically incorrect. For an art person, a credible art person, to look at us,
who has an appreciation of light and really understands,
they look at
light
us
transition,
and go, what is this amateur shit? These guys aren't even doing dimensions correctly. This is amateur hour. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I love what we do, but I'm trying to explain what's going on here and why are we teaching generations behind us to do something incorrect.
Wow.
And it's okay to do it incorrect, but just understand what we're doing. And there's people who do 3Ds and vanishing points and all this stuff correctly, but we've done this thing for generations. And I talk about, like, martial arts. Bruce Lee, I've said this before. Bruce Lee came out, and what did he do? What did Bruce Lee do? Let me ask you a question. What did Bruce Lee do to martial arts?
He kind of flipped it on its head because he combined.
What was he known for?
Combining two different.
Partially correct.
Combining two different sets of martial arts and combining them into one, into his own interpretation, right?
Sort of right. He was experienced enough to say, this is bullshit. That works. That's bullshit. That's tradition. That's bullshit. That works. And he said, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep this. Everything else, get the fuck out of here. That's all bullshit.
So he siphoned out the bullshit
and
created
stuff. A formula that was successful. 100%. Okay. And that's what jiu-jitsu's done. If it does not work, we don't teach it.
What was it technically, like Jukindo? What was it called? I forget.
So judo is the stand-up. So, okay, you're asking a lot of questions. Judo used to have Nuwaza, ground grappling, all in one. Judo became an Olympic sport, and it's just a throw and a pin.
It's using other people's energy to work against them, right? Sorta,
kinda. It's the leverage and balance and throws and stuff and grips.
Yeah.
A lot of grips and pinning. But it became an Olympic sport, and then everything changed. But it went to Brazil, and the ground fighting, which is grappling, we call it grappling, it's called Nuwaza. It's the ground side of judo. And so it got separated. But in its origin, it was all one. Judo and all that shit was just one. In Japan, back in the day, it was all one. But now it's split into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the grappling ground game. But we apply judo throws, wrestling takedowns, elbows. It's like, if it works, keep it. If it doesn't work, get the fuck out of here. That's my whole concept of like this graffiti shit. I wanted to say,
you're siphoning out the bullshit, only keeping the essentials.
Understand what works and what doesn't. And if you're doing something out of tradition, understand you're doing that tradition. Don't just do it.
Ah, that makes sense.
Just understand what it is. Like, I'm not against tradition. I just think foundation and stuff is more important.
Knowledge is infinite.
Exactly. So, like, it just makes sense to me, like, pay attention to what we're doing and fix your flaws, because there's dudes who are like 40, 50 years into this game and they're doing dumb shit. And 20 years ago, I couldn't say that. But now I'm in a position where I'm like, you're doing dumb shit and you're a legend and no one's ever told you that you're doing 3D wrong or whatever, or your letters are not making sense. It's time we, as a culture, straighten this shit up and fix our flaws, because there's guys in fucking Singapore doing better shit than we are as far as like letter structure and stuff like that, because they actually care, and you motherfuckers are getting lazy.
Interesting.
So if nothing else, a generation behind me can appreciate it. And if anybody is trying to fix their shit, they're welcome to like apply some of the things that I talk about. So it's just, I want to put it out there because it's like a different approach. You know what I'm saying?
This book is essentially a master class into the basics and fundamentals of graffiti to a person who really wants to pursue this in a serious manner, to set them off on the right footsteps, as well as be informative to the person who's just a spectator on the outside.
Exactly. I was going to correct you because I had to figure a voice for two people. I'm talking to the seasoned vet who has their shit together, but maybe he's hit a ceiling and wants to break through the ceiling because there's something holding him back. I'm allowing you now to find out what your flaw is and find the breakthrough.
That's never been done before.
I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Never. No way.
It used to be a big brother or a neighborhood kid would help you out. That's gone. Those eras are gone. Everybody now is just looking at pictures and copying.
Yeah.
So this is a way to say, I've gotten to a plateau. Here's how I break through to the next. If you're willing to teach yourself, like I said, if you're not learning, you're stuck. You're done. You're dead. If you're figure, I'm too good, I don't need to do, okay, this book ain't for you. If you generally love what you do and you want to get better, there's things in this book that are going to take you to that next step. There's also things in this book, if you just love graffiti or you just love what this culture is and you just want to see an insight.
Like me.
It's perfect for you too. But I'm talking to you in a way that I'm not pontificating and talking down to anybody, but I'm also not boring the fucking seasoned black belt in this shit. You know what I'm saying? It's
of course.
It's a hard thing to balance, and it's also my own inner voice, which is a little tough because I catch myself like having to correct how I approach things because it's I want to shoot from the hip, but then I'm like, okay, I gotta dance a little delicate on this.
There's never been anything like this that has ever been published in history.
That's why I don't I've pulled back from publishers because I understand the numbers game now, and I'm just self-publishing. So you're gonna be able to buy it from me directly, and I'm gonna sell a certain number of first edition, and there's gonna be maybe 100 of those that are going to be customized inside covers.
I need one.
So I'm going to have a reasonably priced book, and then 100 that are a little more pricier, but are very special to the people who really want that special book.
Give me that one.
Yes. When no one's giving, gimme.
No, PayPal ready is what I mean.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I mean. When I say I'm ready, I got the money.
Those are going to be special. I'm going to have to spend a little time just getting those prepared. But that's kind of cool now because a lot of people are doing like customized things. I want to put a book out there that you could buy if you're just curious about reading, but I want people like you, my homies that are in the book, people that I know that have been through the trenches with me. They're like, I want one of those special ones. And that's going to be to those guys.
That's what I want.
And I'm talking to a few people who put out books, so I'm trying to make this a very special book. It's not going to be just some bullshit that just cracks and dries in 5 years and pages fall out. Like I have some shit happening. So
I'm very excited because I feel like this is some groundbreaking shit. This is something that has never touched or anybody's mind, you know, so this is a very special moment and I'm there. So
thank you, man. And I've been sitting on it for a while.
Send me an invoice. Yeah. It's there ready.
I'll take care of you. I'll do you a special cover, man.
Send me an invoice. I'm ready. When do you project this book to release?
I mean, the book, the wording's done. It's just layout, and I'm hunting for certain photos now. And I told you, like, I come from an era of hard copy photos, so now I'm trying to find, is the picture I need for this specific topic, is it going to be a digital photo? Do I have to go find the original? Do I have to ask somebody to find me a phase 2 piece from a certain era or a Vulcan piece that I'm specifically talking about that I have to hunt down? Or I've gone to Dime in Germany. I've gone to fucking Ernie. I've gone to certain people to get specific content from them about certain topics. And so the layout is going to be the hardest part because I have to have certain images that bring the receipt for what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's tough. But Chino, BYI, shout out to Chino. He's like, listen, just chop a little bit every day. It'll help out. Good. Don't look at it as an overwhelming thing. Just chop a little bit every day. Yeah. Get it out. So I try to dedicate a day a week to try and really put into the book stuff. And I'm just pushing away. I have a lot of projects going on. So I try to dedicate a day to each project. Push every day as I can.
Well, I'm excited for it. Is there anything else that you got planned besides the book? For the future or that you're currently working on?
I'm working on a comic for myself, man. Just a to-do list thing. I've been wanting to put a comic book together. So I'm doing a page a week for that. And I try and time lapse it. And you could check it out on Instagram. It's beep box truck. That's it. It's just at beep box truck. It's just,
do you have any publishers lined up for it?
It's all indie stuff, man. I'm doing everything myself. It's very easy to publish your own stuff now. Yeah. I sell it direct. So I don't need to, man.
That's the beauty of the present day era. It's I call it the DIY era.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do whatever you want when you want.
And the whole point of this, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I wanted to do a project that has nobody telling me you can't curse, you can't do nudity, you can't do copyright infringement. Everything I want to do, if I have the idea to do it, it's in there.
Yeah.
It's some straight up pirate shit.
Sick.
Like, I'm just doing whatever the fuck I want. Copyright infringement, borderline vulgarity, porn, violence. You know, it's just a bunch of shit. Like, you just look at it and go, this guy's out of his mind. I love it. So, yeah, I'm on like page 34 or something like that. Plus, there's probably like 9 or 10 advertisements, like fake ads in it. So
Sick.
I just got to get to a point where I'm just like, all right, wrap it up and just publish number one and just call it a day.
Sick, man.
And it's just like merch. It's just like little things you can buy, and it's just like, it's cool to have, and it's unique, and it's one-offs. And
oh, yeah.
Me putting my focuses on little projects and just seeing where they go, you know?
Dope, man. Well, listen, brother, this was
man.
a fucking pleasure. I've been following you for years. You're an absolute legend. I'm very thankful to have you in my presence.
Thank you for having me.
Please plug your socials, your website to the viewers, whatever you got.
Just at MrEwok1.com. That's the website. Or Instagram is at Mr. MrEwokone. And the website is MrEwok1.com. The Gimme Project, EwokDrawsComics.com, man. Just all my socials are connected, man. Just check my Instagram. You'll see it all.
Beautiful. You're the best. I owe you a shit ton. This was was a fucking blessing, and I can't wait to drop it on the, you know,
let's get it, man.
The civilians.
For sure.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you, man.
Love you, my man.
Bless.